Jen, after another 10 seconds, you can just kind of go and get started.
You're live. You're live.
Good evening, CCS community. Welcome to the first virtual board meeting of the Columbus Board of Education. I am President Adair, and I am calling our meeting to order. Would the treasurer please call the roll?
President Adair.
Present.
Ms. Beckerly. Ms. Beckerly. You're muted.
Present.
Mr. Brown.
I'm here.
Mr. Cole.
I'm here.
Dr. Pierce.
Present.
Mr. Ragland.
Present.
Vice President Reyes.
Here.
You have a quorum, Madam President.
Thank you. We actually have a video this evening from a student from Whetstone High School who will be doing the Pledge of Allegiance.
Hi, my name is Rafael Arreglo, Troop 474 in Clintonville. I go to Whetstone High School. Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. It's always so great when we can have our students participate. And I think we have some Boy Scouts who are out in the audience this evening working on a merit badge. So follow along and shout out to the Boy Scouts, especially our Boy Scouts in our district. As we get started this evening, the board put together a special video to thank everyone for their hard work these past few weeks. And we would like to start off our meeting with that. Hi CCS students, it's Board President Adair, and I want to say thank you so much for engaging in your education. I believe in you, and I know that you're going to do great in our CCS Online Academy. Don't forget to stay connected with each other and your teachers. It's been very challenging these past few weeks. We know that you're missing your friends. We know that you're going to be missing experiences and activities. I want to give a big shout out to the class of 2020. I know this wasn't how you thought you would end your high school career. To the 8th grade class, the 5th grade class, and kindergarten, I know you're also missing out, and we have it in mind to try to give you a very special send-off. I believe in you, CCS students. I know we can get through this, and I know that you are going to be excellent on the other side. So keep up that learning and engagement, and we're going to have a great rest of our school year.
This is Board Member Ramona Reyes, sending a big thank you to our families and caregivers who are partnering with our teachers and staff to provide virtual learning opportunities to our students. We're enduring an uncertain period with the pandemic crisis. We are here to help and support you. Thank you also to our community partners for stepping up to help and support our families, working hand in hand with the district to identify and address areas of need. Juntos podemos. Gracias.
Hello, this is Superintendent Talisa Dixon. And I want to say a heartfelt thank you to all of our amazing teacher and school support staff. Whether it's in the classroom or online, you are the backbone of this district. Our teachers and school staff have been leading our efforts over the past few weeks to keep our students engaged remotely, providing creative and unique solutions for at-home learning. Our community relies on the tireless efforts of our teachers and school staff to educate and grow our students. We see you, we support you, we know the effort that you're putting forth each and every day on behalf of Columbus City students. For that, I thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Hello, this is your board member, Michael Cole, reaching out and saying a big thank you to our food service workers who prepare over 6,000 meals a day in over 13 different sites throughout the district. You guys work hard. Look, I know how hard it is to prepare meals for our families. I've got a big one myself. But I tell you what, we're all in this together and we'll get through this together. All right? So again, I want to say thank you to our food service workers for your hard work in our Columbus City schools. All right? And hey, I'll save you a plate.
Hi, this is Carol Beckerly, and I want to thank our ESL translators for translating all our COVID-19 messages into Arabic, French, Nepali, Somali, and Spanish. Thanks to you, our immigrant and refugee families were able to receive updated and correct information. Our thanks also goes to our nurses for leading this pandemic response. Your incredible leadership during this time has been invaluable. We owe you a debt of gratitude.
Board Member Pierce here, and I'd like to thank Information Technology, Information Management, and the 90 dedicated community volunteers that helped us loan out more than 15,000 Chromebooks so our students can continue learning during these uncertain times. Because of your efforts, our students are continuing their academic success.
Thank you, Safe and Security team, for keeping our school buildings safe and for your assistance with our food service meal distribution. We don't want anyone's work to go unstated. We support everyone and all of their efforts in our school community. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Hey there, this is Board Member James Ragland saying hello, giving a shout out and a special big thank you to our buildings and operations team. Some of the things that our folks are doing behind the scenes are making sure that this district continues to run throughout this crisis. Things like making sure our playgrounds are safe, making sure things still get delivered to where they need to be, and also making sure that each and every Columbus City School building gets a thorough cleaning. You guys are the heart of our district, and you continue to do this work even though this entire country is challenged. And I want to make sure that you all know that we really, really appreciate every single thing that you are doing. Thank you so much, and please remember to stay safe.
This is Eric Brown, and my message is for our wonderful CCS school leaders and central office administrators. This past month, we've all faced challenges beyond any we could have imagined, and yet you've provided all of us, especially our students and their families, with strong leadership, making hard choices and tough decisions, focusing on our safety and good health, while holding firm to our educational mission. Wow, thank you. I love you, and I appreciate you all.
Finally, I would like to thank the entire Columbus community for supporting our school district, our students, and their families. We know these are trying times for everyone, but it is inspiring to see the community come together for the greater good. We will get through this, and we will do it by working together.
Thank you so much, board members, for doing that. And I hope that the whole CCS community knows how much you are all appreciated. This certainly has been a time of challenge for our community, for the whole world. And it takes all of us together to get through it. As we continue to work, and you'll see some of our work today, we know we don't have every question answered, but we will continue to work. We will continue to address issues of equity. We will continue to educate our students, and we will continue to make sure that we can be the best that we can. So what we're going to do now is go ahead and move into our meeting, and we will adopt the agenda. I will review the agenda. We do not have any board recognition this evening. We will then move, we do not have public comment. However, we did solicit public comment prior to this. I will just pause and make a note about public comment. Obviously, it is very important that you communicate with us. The Board of Education has established an email address, so feel free to please email us, and we will make sure that we, answer your questions, try to help you. We know that this time is challenging. The whole team is here to assist you, so please reach out. We're also going to work on being able to have public comment in future meetings. We have a report from the superintendent's office, internal auditor and treasurer. We also have a public hearing on the reemployment of an employee. We have matters on our consent agenda. And we have some board announcements, and then we will go into executive session. So board members, are there any questions about the agenda? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
A motion to approve the agenda.
Dr. Pierce?
Second.
We'll call the roll.
President Adair,
Yes.
Ms. Beckerly,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Cole. Yes. Dr. Pierce,
Yes.
Mr. Ragland,
Yes.
Vice President Reyes.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. So we will move down into the superintendent's report, which is item 5. Madam Superintendent, turning it to you.
Good evening, everyone. Excited to be here. Just a little unusual, but as you stated, President Adair, this is going to be our new normal, and we're going to enjoy doing this moment. So tonight I have several people who are going to speak as part of my superintendent's report. And so I would first like to start with our student ambassadors. So Monday, I held my first Zoom meeting with the ambassadors, and we had 14 student ambassadors who participated. And it was a lot of fun, and it was awesome to see them after a great period, this temporary period. So tonight's presentation, our students, we talked about how we can do a different presentation from what we've done in the last meetings. And so tonight we're going to hear from 3 seniors, 2 from Columbus North International and 1 from Eastmore Academy. And I will allow them to introduce themselves in just a second. But their presentations tonight is going to be sharing about being a senior during this COVID-19 epidemic. I wanted them to know that they have an opportunity to build, they have a platform. And tonight we want to hear from them, and their students can hear that they're advocating on their behalf. So we're going to start with their presentation, and then after their presentation, and I'll follow up to talk about the other presentations that are going to come. And then next month, we're going to have students from each of the various high schools, and those presentations are going to be the students will be hearing from those students in that high school. So I told them we're going to use technology, and they can capture the thoughts and recommendations from all of their friends in each of their high schools and bring that to the board as we move forward. So without any further, I would like for the 3 students who are with us tonight to please introduce yourselves and then start your presentation.
Good evening. My name is Isabella Gonzalez, and I'm a senior at Columbus North International. And I'm here alongside fellow CNIS senior Jewel Kamara and Eastmore Academy senior Faith. This evening, we're representing not just the seniors of Columbus City Schools, but the class of 2020 as a whole. We've each prepared some words to express what it's like to be a senior in the current climate, and to discuss how we and many other seniors are feeling, fearing, and hoping. The class of 2020 has been raised with much anticipation. Many of us were born in the wake of 9/11 to parents and communities stricken with fear for our safety and our futures. Our road to 2020 has been long and full of trials and tribulations. For CNIS, we began our year full of angst because of our relocation, and it took us time to adjust to our new home. The first half of the year was full of challenges, applications, and frustration, but it all subsided as our inboxes began to flood with college acceptances and as our scholarship dollars began to pile up by the thousands. We thought we'd finally made it. The past 12 years all cultivating to this very time. The time to dance at our proms in flowing gowns, to laugh over class superlatives, and to walk the stage with bittersweet tears in our eyes. But things have changed, and our senior year has quickly become murky and full of uncertainty. We're all waiting patiently for May 1st, but with every passing day, it feels as if it's only getting further and further away. Collectively, the class of 2020 is mourning the loss of our senior year. and we're fearing for the remainder of 2020 as college is so close on our horizons. We know that a prom, a graduation, and other such activities are insignificant in light of the current world state. And we know that in 30 years, whether or not we had a prom or a graduation may not affect us, but we're affected right now. We apologize if we complain or if we seem unreasonable, but we want to feel heard. As a class, we found comfort within each other, but we hope that our parents, our educators, and the adults in our lives understand and, most importantly, validate our feelings and fears, even if they seem trivial to adults. We know that you cannot promise us anything or make things go away, but we ask that you please stay open-minded, stay hopeful, and don't give up on us, because this is our reality and this is still our senior year.
And I'm a senior at Eastmore Academy High School. As you all know, our school district has effectively transformed to online and virtual learning. With this, all units are now completing assignments to virtual learning platforms. So far, my virtual learning experiences have been good. Most of my classes are up and running, and if I have any problems with an assignment, my teachers are doing everything they can to help us navigate through these problems. Although everything is perfect. Not only are teachers doing everything they can, but my principals and counselors are doing this. They have been doing weekly updated scholarship information and have been doing their best to assist with giving out recommendation letters and transcripts for college applications and more. Although my experiences have been great, other students have expressed to me how they have some minor problems with virtual learning. Students have expressed how they have been getting mixed messages between one and most of the pieces of information to send out to these students to cover which guidance to follow. Besides our virtual learning experiences, we see our classes also in the work going on with the COVID-19. We have been going through the school year, growing, waiting on our big day. Data exposure of one exercises of your life and serve enough, whether you are going to college, going into the workforce, or later. Although it can be sometimes upside and down. As we go along through the following months, we have to thank parents and people involved. When it's time to make the final decision about prom and graduation, we actually consider involved and consider student voice, because this is impacting us as one way to make sure students are staying involved is to join our PCS senior seminar, which will launch soon, so we can discuss these topics along with many other high school students.
Hi everyone, I am Jill Kamara from Columbus North International High School. Faith and Isabella have done a great job of summing up what we've been feeling during these uncertain times. While trying to maintain doing well in our online classes, we're also a bit scared and anxious. Some of the staff members, however, as Faith stated, others not so much. We obviously wish that everyone was on the same page, but with a district as big as ours, we understand that it can be difficult. Some of the things that we've been recently speaking about in our ambassador meetings has been embedding senior seminars in our college decisions as the May 1st deadline is approaching, financial aid, uncertainty of the future, staying motivated, etc. Speaking of staying motivated, this is something that many things that we're uncertain about right now. For example, graduation and prom. I think it's important to highlight the fact that as a CCS senior class, we still hope to have an actual graduation ceremony, perhaps even a prom, whether that is in June, July, or August. We get it. We're in the midst of a pandemic and we're not the only ones going through this. The entire world is. While prom and graduation may seem like these minuscule events that we will forget about down the road, it's important to us now. It's what matters to us now. As a first generation, leaving everything they had and knew back home to present us with these opportunities that would have nearly been impossible for them. Coming from a school like International, I know that for some of our students, they're the first in their families to graduate even high school. Graduating high school may seem like the norm for many. However, for some of us, it's bigger than that. It's bigger than us. For most people, the end of senior year is where things get easier. But for us, it's becoming children that had to take 6 classes online as a high school senior. I remember sitting through one of the student design team meetings, and one of the adults stood up and stated that one of their aspirations for CCS students is for them to fall in love with learning. As I sit back and think back this was the highlight of our days. With that being said, we greatly appreciate how you all haven't made a decision to cancel graduation or even prom, and we ask that you continue to keep an open mind. We have hope that the world will get through this, and once all of this boils down, it will be more than worth. We are the same children born into history, months after 9/11, and now find ourselves at the peak of another historical monument for our nation. We are experiencing something that nobody else has in the same as our student needs. Thank you so much for listening.
Wow. Thank you all for that fascinating. This is what we get. We've also agreed, the student ambassadors want to meet weekly, starting after spring break. We're going to have, I think, weekly meetings Mondays at 2 p.m. I think they don't want morning meetings. But this is important to me, and I know it was important to you that you hear from them. Student voice is so important. Agency and advocacy, that's something that we have spent this entire school year working on, letting them know is power in their voices and that we are allowing them a platform to speak on behalf of themselves and their other students. And to Jay and Faith and Isabella, again, you did an awesome job. So proud of you. The board is listening, and I'm not sure if any board members have any comments for them prior to us going into the remainder of the report.
Yes, actually, Board Member Beckerly has a comment.
I just want to say thank you. You're inspiring us. You're so mature and sensible, and these are important things. And I know we're working on them and we'll do our best, but I just don't want you to diminish. These are important moments in your lives, and thank you for sharing your thoughts and your wisdom and for encouraging us.
Dr. Pierce has a comment.
So I just want to echo the comments of Board Member Beckerly, but also add, please don't apologize for something that you are deserving of. A prom, a graduation, you deserve it. You have worked hard from the time you hit preschool when you were 2. Some of y'all been in school all your lives. You deserve these monumental moments. So don't apologize. It's our job as adults to ensure that you have those moments. So be patient with us as we work to make sure that you have those moments that you deserve.
Vice President Reyes.
Thank you, President Adair. Thank you all. Gracias. I really, really, really appreciate hearing from you. I'm an auntie of a senior this year, and she's also struggling with these decisions. Please, as we keep an open mind, we encourage you to give us ideas. There's a lot of ideas out there on how we can be creative in providing those moments for you. There are schools that are doing virtual graduations. There's all sorts of new ways to celebrate. We may or may not be able to do it in person, but that doesn't preclude us from possibly doing it in a great and creative way. Just like you said, you were born in a monumental way. You may be going out in a very monumental way. So it may be the first time we do something just out of this world that includes, CCS has never done an all-inclusive 1921 high school graduation. So maybe this is the year to do it. I would encourage you to give us that feedback. We're all hopeful and prayerful that we can get through this because we want to see you. One of the best moments of being a school board member is seeing you all walk across the stage and being present to celebrate with you, to celebrate all your accomplishments and everything that the district has done, and just seeing your beautiful faces as you walk across. So please know that we're there with you, and we're here to support you, but we're also encouraging you to give us your ideas and let us know how best to make this possibly the best graduating class in the history of CCS. So thank you.
Thank you. And students, I echo what they've said. Your comments are so important to all of us. This is a time for you to be celebrated. You've worked so hard, and this is hard for your grown-ups as well. We'd love to celebrate with you. And please, I'm super excited that you guys are going to continue to talk and share with Dr. Dixon and share with each other. And I think that Vice President Reyes is absolutely right. We could do something amazing. We could do something that nobody else in the country is doing. You guys have the opportunity to be, just blow it out of the water and include everyone. So proud of you. So proud of the presentation you gave today. And just thank you so much. I'll turn it back to you, Dr. Dixon.
All right, again, thank you. So as I stated, I was excited to see the students again and to hear about their experience on the first day doing our long-term plan. And during our meeting with cabinet yesterday, I said to them, it was so refreshing to hear that their first day using technology went well for the most part. They gave some suggestions, of course, as students do, of improvement, but all in all 14 to 15 of them stated they had a good first day. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Ocasio and Dr. Chapman. Dr. Tracy Ocasio is our Chief Academic Officer, and Dr. Angela Chapman is our Chief of Transformation and Leadership. And what they have done and with their teams, an academic team, to put something together in a matter of weeks, states that we have the right people leading these efforts and working together on behalf of all of our students. So at this time, they will review with you that long-term plan that started Monday. So Dr. Ocasio and Dr. Chapman.
Good evening. I'm going to start, and then Dr. Chapman will add in. Dr. Chapman and I meet every morning with the curriculum people, all of academic services, so not just curriculum, health services, special education, etc. All of those in the Department of Academic Services, as well as the area superintendents. And we've been doing this since our first day out, which would have been March 16th. And it's funny because I thought of something earlier today, a few months ago when I shared with you what our plans were. I remember using the word adelante. And so we are definitely moving ahead, and we're moving ahead at a feverish pace over the course of these last 3 weeks. So what I'm going to share with you is the internal academic plan, and I'm going to put my screen up here now. So what you'll see on the screen is the internal academic plan. We shared a similar version with parents. Mr. Wortman put a similar document out, a little more concise, a little more succinct, that gave on the left side, here's the primary platform, and on the right side, here's the way that students would access that primary platform. They typically would go through Clever. On Clever, when they log in, they'll see a page that has what looks like buttons or icons, and they would press on the icon, and that would take them to the actual program. We have single sign-on, so there's no need to sign on a second time, and all of the students subject area. One of the things that occurred is when we found out the afternoon of March 12th, which was a Thursday, we felt that we needed to get some resources on our COVID page on the website so that parents had a chance to continue learning and that they had an opportunity to access these resources as that parents could use as resources. If you look at the COVID, you'll see an academic services link, and on that there are various websites that students can engage in with their families on their own, just resources for families, not just for academics. This was important for us. Our social and emotional team, which is part of academic services, also put out information, links, and resources because this is a time that's difficult for adults and definitely difficult for for children. And we wanted to make sure that we considered that as well, so that families had access to resources and they wouldn't have to go searching. There's also some great documents there that talk about virtual field trips. There's one to the Cincinnati Zoo, I believe, multiple areas in Ohio, as well as some places out of the state. And so we wanted to make sure this was available to families. This internal document describes all of the platforms that are being used. And let me explain by what I mean with the platform. Dr. Chapman's going to talk a little bit more about expectations for staff. I'm going to share with you the curriculum pieces. Every grade level, every subject area, and I'll scroll down a little bit so that you can see that we considered all areas through adult education. Each area has a primary platform. You see this on the left. And on the left side, what we did is we engage in continuous learning. Here's why we believe this is important. Learning cannot stop on March 13th. There was a whole quarter of content that students needed to master. And we believe in our students. We believe that we have students in Columbus that may find cures for things like we're going through right now. And in order for them to be prepared for the next part of their life, we need to make sure that they're not missing out, because today is the only day they'll be 5. It's the only day they'll be 10. It's the only day or only year they'll be 15. And so regardless of this epidemic that we're going through, this pandemic, we felt like we needed to support our families, and we took feedback from families that said they would like their students to or their children to continue learning. So what you'll see here is we adopted a primary platform. Those platforms are self-paced. All students are enrolled in primary platforms by subject area. We also included things that the early currently in the classroom, we have the opportunity to use that at home. Okay, in the classroom, we have the opportunity to have them use that at home as well. We decided to adopt Edmentum for many of our secondary courses because they offer courses that match up our current course catalog. And so what we had to do with those Edmentum courses is we had to develop flex assignments. Edmentum runs an entire year's worth of content. We are able to pick out a part that's only for 4th quarter, and that was pushed out to students and families. What you will find, though, is we believe that nothing replaces a high-quality teacher. And so that primary platform, as dynamic or as engaging as that platform can be to offer self-paced instruction, you'll notice that on the right side, these are things that teachers are doing to augment that. So if there's a student that needs extra assistance, let's say they're working on gene mutations in the science, biology in high school, and students may be struggling with that, the teacher can monitor the work on the primary platform and then offer supplemental instruction. Perhaps the reason they're having trouble with gene mutations is they didn't really understand the composite of a cell, and knowing that then helps me understand about mutations. They may not have had some basic information, resource for teachers to see, here are your primary, and here's the opportunity to supplement. We also created what we refer to as an academic services newsletter. And I'm going to click on that now and share that with you. This is our first issue in this academic services newsletter. This is an opportunity. It's an internal facing document where all of our CCS family has access to it. It's been sent to all employees. And in this internal facing document, we start with, of course, the message about how much we are looking forward to continuing to provide that high quality education that we know our teachers are giving and have given all year long. And we want to make sure that the staff knows we're here to support them in continuing to deliver this instruction in an avenue that may be new to many of them, as well as to many of our students. And so what you'll notice is that in that area, we have broken this down into specific areas of teaching and learning. I am showing you one of the early pages. This is our elementary resources document, and our staff have access to this. They click on links, and I'll wait for this to open. And what they'll have is another page that not only shares the virtual academic plan, the virtual learning plan that you're seeing is populating right now, but then it also gives them additional resources and additional links to click on so that they are able to, let me just work with my screen a little bit, additional links embedded either in the document or in other areas. We also have video for them to explain, here's what we're doing in each particular area. And we are looking to support staff as they're trying to deliver very specific targeted lessons using those supplemental platforms. So I want to summarize just so that we're just explaining the entire piece here. The initial piece is that we have a primary platform that's self-paced, that's aligned to what would be fourth quarter content. And then we have these additional supplemental opportunities for teachers to use with families and groups of students. And so in addition to this, and let me see if I can come right back up here, sorry. Let's toggle between screens, back into that one. In addition to elementary, you'll notice that we have multiple areas.
Dr. Ocasio, I'm
Yes.
sorry to interrupt. I think that you are not sharing the second document.
Oh, thank you. Good to know. We have been using WebEx. I'm glad that you did interrupt because I'm talking from a document that I'm clicking on if you're not seeing. Let me pull down again this piece and see. I would have thought that once you share your screen, it would share completely. We are using WebEx in the district. And so let me come back to stop share and pull up my, one moment. I just need to open my Zoom again. 1 second. Careful. Sorry, I'm toggling and I'm not able to, here we go. I got you now. I think I have it now. All right. 1 second. I apologize. We worked through this today and now my screen is freezing. Here we go. New share. There we are. Sorry about that. Thank you for interjecting. New share. Okay. All right. Here we are. You should see the newsletter. Does everyone see? Awesome. So this was a little less familiar to me. So one of the things that I shared with you before and that I was talking about is this is our academic narrative was the Office of Teaching and Learning under Elementary. Very specific links throughout the document and also a document that lets them access other digital platforms, other digital resources. Down, you'll notice there's a section that says curriculum resources up as well and see actual curriculum resources. So there are sample online schedules for teachers and students. There are sample materials to augment the primary platform that's self-paced. Initial thread. Oops. In our services resource. And so the site where students have a virtual library online. And by clicking on this particular link that is also part of our COVID page, students actually can access text or books that they would like to check out as though they were going to the library. And that also is on our site for related to our teachers' learning opportunities. And then of course, here are those other resources. We have special education resources, our seniors and our cohorts that are preparing for graduation. They're able to use with their families, as well as our social work groups. They're also offering lessons related to coping with your feelings. We've pushed some out through Twitter. Some of our counselors have dealt some of those lessons as well, so that we are considering not just the academic piece, but also the social and emotional piece, which is always important. And of course, experiencing anxiety. So one of the things I did want to share with you that we have the primary platforms, but our power really is in our amazing teaching staff and their ability to monitor the progress of students, to look for areas where they can offer intervention, where they can enhance their learning experience. If students are advanced, they can also provide a different type of group to those students to continue their education and moving fast. We have a host of supplemental platforms that are pushed out. Students would log in through Clever, or teachers would push them out through Google Classroom. We've had a very specific targeted professional development plan that has been enacted so that teachers feel confident and comfortable. We've had the opportunity to meet with teachers virtually throughout this time, and we are continuing the business of instructing our students during this time frame. One other thing I did want to share, in our special for the board, we were able to develop, identify, and then develop from a platform the opportunity to teach our multi-disabled students that there is a specific opportunity with curriculum that matches their needs in this platform. We are using that currently. It's something new. Some of our teachers piloted it. One of the things that that platform also does is it allows us to provide related services, things such as speech or OTPT, in a virtual environment with our students, so that we give you an opportunity for questions.
Member Ragland has a question.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ocasio, for sharing this information. My question is regarding getting feedback from teachers and principals during this time as well. I know we have, you've shown us tonight that we do have the opportunity to give information out to the teachers so they can interact that way. But are we receiving information in real time from the teachers about what they are seeing and how they are operating within our current structure? I think that it would be, beneficial for us to make sure that we're also hearing from them as we're giving them out information. Then that way we can kind of do some troubleshooting ourselves on the issues that they're seeing on a day-to-day basis. Do we have a mechanism for that? And are we, typically we may find it beneficial to kind of survey the teachers and see what it is that that they're coming up against, or just allow for a platform for them to kind of get in touch with us. How are we making that happen, Mike?
So one of the things, and Dr. Chapman can elaborate further when she speaks in a few moments, our teams are still doing the teacher-based teams in their buildings, so our principals have an opportunity to meet with groups of teachers. They've been doing that since we first went out on the 16th. One of the other ways that we're doing this, we are still continuing to meet with groups of teachers based on special projects, our MTSS framework, our curriculum adoptions. We are also meeting with our instructional design teams. We've shared this information with our CEA members as well. We've cascaded this down through the administrative channels, met with principals and school leaders to talk about this plan, to get some feedback from them. As I mentioned, Dr. Chapman and I meet daily with our teams together. We also meet sometimes separately in small one-off meetings as well. And so we've made an effort to look at the things that our stakeholders have communicated out. We monitor parent feedback and have tried to respond to parent feedback in various channels. We've also looked at the chat in every professional development. When you use WebEx, it's very similar to the mechanism that we're using this evening. There's a chat feature, and we are able to monitor the feedback in that chat, and we've responded to that in real time. One of the things that we've tried to do is make adjustments as well based on that. And I can let Dr. Chapman speak to any of the other pieces, because she works a lot with two-way communication, making sure that it's getting through the principals to the teachers and back.
Okay, and then I guess I'll save my my next question then for Dr. Chapman. Thank you, Madam President.
Did Dr. Chapman want to chime in?
Yes, I can speak to the question about engagement, and then transition. We're originally going to transition to the next piece about academic expectations, and then launch into questions. But specifically about engagement, we're continuing all of our streams of communication with our principals and our teachers. So for principals, we are continuing to have region meetings. So the area superintendents are convening the principals virtually, following up with phone calls, one-on-one conferences as an opportunity to provide feedback as well as support. We also have a principal cabinet that meets monthly with the superintendent. We have certainly called on this principal cabinet to meet with us regularly during this extended school closure to provide us with feedback. And as far as our teachers, our principals are still meeting, as Dr. Ocasio, I believe, mentioned. They have staff meetings, they have building leadership team meetings, teacher-based teams. And so those are awesome opportunities to get feedback from our teachers on the work and the virtual academic plan, academic supports, as well as resources.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, Dr. Chapman, you want to go ahead and start with your part, and then board members, if you
Want to do that piece, and then that piece to kind of bowl together with the academics and the, okay, Dr. Chapman, go ahead.
Okay, I'll share my screen. Okay, so at this time, I would like to provide some context for our shared expectations as we transition to a virtual learning environment, which is now our new normal. I say that to say that we are all learning together. Our team has certainly embraced this new challenge with open arms. Our principals, our teachers, our social workers, our counselors, all of our support staff has welcomed this new challenge and embraced it with much joy and enthusiasm. And as we transition to this virtual learning environment, we want to remind our stakeholders that our team has very high expectations for our staff during this extended closure, and we are working diligently to make sure that we stay connected with our students and our families and continue to foster a sense of community. So, what does academic support look like during extended school closure, and what can you expect? So our school leaders and our staff will work with their teachers and staff to ensure that we keep all of our students and families actively engaged and connected during this extended closure. In addition to phone calls, our families and students can expect personal communication and contact. It won't be home visits, but you can expect conference calls, Google Classroom, Google check-in forms, and video conferencing. I believe Dr. Ocasio mentioned earlier that we are using WebEx for most of our video conferences in the district, and all of our schools now have a WebEx account so that their teachers can use the school-based WebEx account to use that as another platform to connect with students and families. Our schools will work diligently to sustain a sense of community by communicating regularly with students and families. For example, all of our teachers are working from home. All of our staff are working from home during this time, and we've asked them to hold office hours at minimum to 2 to 3 times a week for students and families. We want them to stay connected with students by email. As you know, we rolled out our student email accounts this week so that all of our students have access to email. Our staff will be monitoring student engagement on the virtual learning platforms, checking student progress, and providing feedback to students and families. Again, we will continue to provide support to our students who have special needs by conducting IEP and 504 meetings, and all of our staff will be available and on hand and ready to assist our learners with support, technical assistance, as well as content support during this online learning in this virtual environment. Our school leaders will continue to serve as instructional leaders by ensuring that they are supporting staff, students, and monitoring instruction in our new virtual environment daily. They will be closely monitoring student engagement on the various platforms as well as student progress. Our staff will be ready to mobilize school intervention support teams when the need arises. So they'll be monitoring student engagement levels if they're finding that some students are not engaged or not responding to their teachers or outreach. They will be connecting with them. All of our mental health supports and mental health support staff are still available to support our students, which includes our social workers, our guidance counselors, our intervention specialists, our nurses. We are still ready and willing to support our students as needed. As our student ambassador so eloquently said, this is a very challenging time for our seniors. And to all of our student ambassadors that are with us tonight, our students, our seniors that are at home watching online, we want you to know that we see you, we hear you, and we support you. We are committed to making sure that we finish strong this school year, particularly for our graduating seniors. As such, we have identified a senior team at each of our high schools to double down on our efforts to keep our seniors engaged. The senior team includes administrators, teachers, social workers, school counselors, graduation coaches, internship coordinators, and I Know I Can coordinators. Our school counselors and social workers have partnered with I Know I Can to develop an intentional outreach plan and to connect with every senior to check in with them on a regular basis. Our school counselors are also tracking the progress of our seniors and scheduling students into needed VCAP courses and supporting students' social emotional needs by providing individual supports. We are currently in the process of scheduling weekly senior seminars, as some of our students ambassadors already alluded to. This is a perfect opportunity to ensure that we provide our student ambassadors, our students at all of our high schools, and particularly our seniors, with student voice, so that they can provide us with feedback on the supports that they need, the resources that they need, so that they can finish strong. These senior seminars will serve as a dedicated time for senior cohorts to come together as a learning community. Some sample topics may include discussing graduation pathways, emotional regulation, supporting our students as learners in an online environment, and transitioning from high school to college. We know that our seniors will also give us very valuable feedback on topics of interest to them. And as we close, we just want to remind everyone that, as the governor has said many times before on the 2 o'clock, 2:30 update meetings, we are all in this together. So we certainly want you to know that we will be as patient and supportive as needed to ensure that all of our students and families feel supported and engaged during this transition to a virtual online learning environment. Thank you.
Okay, we have some questions. I think Dr. Pierce.
Thank you so much for the presentation. As an educator that had to rapidly move from face-to-face classes to online classes, I understand what many of our staff members are dealing with. Also, as a parent of 4 children who are now at home engaging in many of these platforms that you speak about, I also understand frustrations as well as happy moments that we as parents are feeling. My first question is this. Dr. Cassio, in your presentation, you stated that our teachers are starting at the 4th quarter because our students had done work 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. However, it's my experience that the quarter that they're starting at is the grade level that your child is assigned to. So specifically, my 5th grader was sitting and doing 4th grade work today because that's what aligned with her grade level. That's not what aligned with where her teacher has worked with her and moved her a grade level ahead. So how do these platforms provide opportunity for differentiation, for intervention, and for advancement?
So you bring up a great question. The primary platform offers grade level instruction, and in some cases, it depends on which platform we're talking about. If it's iReady, ELA, or math, it will adjust as long as it's programmed to do that. But in some cases, teachers will have the student go through the grade level work and then adjust it for them. One of the things that we have asked teachers to do, and Dr. Chapman mentioned this in her actual presentation, is the expectation is this is a primary platform, but our teachers should be monitoring progress and then offering differentiation, just like they would in the traditional classroom. And we would ask to be patient with that because the teachers are getting used to in some cases, they haven't seen the platform. In some cases, they've used it often, especially in our primary grades, they've used iReady pretty regularly, but our intermediate grades, some schools have, some schools have not. So in some cases, it may be the adjustment period that teachers are getting used to the platform. But one of the expectations that we have is that teachers have the opportunity to be as creative and as innovative as they'd like. The primary platform is the floor, but we expect, just like in the classroom, if I'm presenting a lesson on grade level and I have a group of students that are advanced for that lesson, I offer differentiation. I give them other content that would meet that expectation. And there is an opportunity in that platform to do that. And it may just mean that there needs to be an adjustment made. We are expecting all teachers, and so here's the other side of that. A teacher offers grade level instruction, there may be gap skills that students are having trouble performing at grade level. We also expect then intervention. So just as we would in a traditional classroom, the intervention and enrichment are really necessary because all of our kids are at different places. In any classroom, kids are at different places. It just would depend on the composition of the group that you have in front of you. But we are expecting that teachers would make adjustments and offer supplemental instruction that would either provide an intervention or enrichment.
So thanks for sharing that. So I'm hearing that you indicate that teachers do have the opportunity to tailorize the materials, customize the materials for their students. Can you just real quickly, this should be a quick answer, what's the approximate number of teachers and intervention staff that you and your team met with to craft this academic plan?
So we met with design groups, we met with TOSAs, we met with various stakeholders across different levels. Some are administrators. There were teachers. I can't give you an approximate number, but I know that we had teachers present. There were teachers that were creating it. There were grids that were being created at the same time. Now, would I have liked to have more teachers available to craft the plan? Yes. But given all that was happening in the 3 weeks that we had since we went out, we met with as many people as possible. And teachers are the ones that helped us create the resource materials. So when I had clicked on the newsletter that has those resources, those opportunities for differentiation are right there in those resources in that newsletter. So a teacher can pull any of that information, they can tailor lessons. And we are continuing to meet with groups of teachers. We have an instructional design team that is representative across the district. We've asked for some feedback from members of the site. We had 1 day, and so we developed them as quickly as possible. That was a group of teachers as well as even vendors that came in and helped us do that. This plan that we've created in the last 2 weeks, because last week we needed the plan before we could offer professional development. Last week was all developed to, or all dedicated to offering that professional development. So we did have teachers involved. Would I have liked to have more? Absolutely. But given the urgency of the matter, we did not have as many. But we also have instructional design teams of teachers that are actually in buildings that we consult with regularly on all plans.
So is it your expectation, is it your plan then to actually engage more building level teachers in your plan moving forward?
Yes, so as we continue, and actually even beyond this, one of the things that we are looking at is, of course, our ELA and math adoptions. Those are all committees that are made up of teachers across buildings. We are looking then to build out what our content will look like next year as well with teachers across buildings. We have looked at ways to offer surveys to teachers. We are working on getting some of that information out for our future planning in terms of curriculum and instruction. We would hope to continue to work with those design teams. They've done some incredible work around the MTSS framework. Those were teachers that were a combination of volunteers as well as appointments from administrators. We have multi-levels of experience in those design teams as well.
Board President, I had 2 questions for Dr. Chapman, but I defer to you because I know Board Member Cole had questions.
Yes, we have a couple more questions. Board Member Cole? Oh, unmute yourself, Board Member Cole.
Can you hear me? My apologies. Thank you again so much, Dr. Ocasio, Madam President, for the presentation, also Dr. Chapman. My first question is to Dr. Ocasio. It seems like you've had extensive dialogue with the design team. Did any of that incorporate career technical education? These are a unique group of students who have more applied experiences as a part of their curriculum. How are we incorporating the distance learning, if at all, into that? How has this incident impacted learning opportunities for CTE students? That's my first question.
That's a great question, and I did not share this. I should have as we went down the list. So we use AP Classroom for AP students. For CTE, we do have a combination of resources in Edmentum. They're not as well aligned. What we have had happen with CTE, because it is diverse, and it's not easy to just identify an online course. We have worked with teachers in CTE. They are creating their own planning grids around, here's what I'm teaching if I'm on this particular, in this area. So cosmetology is doing their thing. Engineering is doing their planning grids. And so those materials are all teacher created. We did similarly with the Unified Arts because some of the platform or the resources on the platform weren't enough. They weren't comprehensive enough for some of these subject areas. So what we did in many of those cases is we took some time to work with the groups of teachers, and Celeste Lewis continues to work with CTE So CTE, the teachers have built out the next couple of weeks, but it is not built out towards the end of the year. They're taking some time to get together. They're working on what is it that they need to teach next, and they're building their own planning grids given the diversity of that department. So I'm glad that you brought that up. The one area that we are going to have to tackle in the future, but cannot tackle right now, is some of those areas require that there are some hours that CTE teachers offer students to engage in the craft that they are seeking, such as cosmetology, in order to get a license after they leave here, after they graduate. We are not able right now to do any face-to-face hours. So we are going to have to think about that as things progress and look at what the circumstances are and see how we can actually make up that time if possible.
So in terms of timeline, are we saying that those students particularly are, just because again of the circumstances, there's going to be some possible considerable delay for their credentials, for them finishing their training?
So I don't know that there's going to be considerable delay. We'll have to think about what are the hour requirements. In some cases, it won't be. Like, so for example, Microsoft Office is its own platform. We're not using Edmentum or any other platform for those that are enrolled in that Microsoft Office business coursework. And so there's no delay there. And it just depends on the particular shop. It depends on how we give that education virtually. We are working on estimating what is it that we're going to have to consider moving forward. Cosmetology is one, getting students practice hours. As much as we'd all volunteer to let students come and practice if we could, but that face-to-face component is the part that's holding up, being able to do that.
Thank you, Dr. Ocasio. Before I go to my second question with Dr. Chapman, if that is not on the website, the CTE directed opportunities for students, can we please make sure that there's some sort of update or highlight there?
Sure. There is a section, but we need to put more out there to flesh that out, because as I said, that's one that is a little delayed because we have teams of teachers coming together and it just takes a little bit more time because it is so diverse.
Yep, just as soon as we can, I would love to make sure we had that information available. Thank you again. Dr. Chapman, you mentioned the senior student engagements. Dr. Dixon and I had a wonderful conversation yesterday about that. I want to get clarity on what those seminars are. Is that a discussion with the entire class as a whole, or on a school for school basis? How will those seminars work?
So the senior seminars is by school. So there's a senior team mobilized at each high school, and they are conducting a senior seminar where they can connect with all the seniors by site. So it's not all the seniors in the entire district coming together, but just the seniors by site. And so those are regularly just setting the cadence for regular meetings, to have touch base opportunities to connect with our seniors, to provide them with more information, to reassure them, to keep them connected. This is a time dedicated just for them so that they can stay engaged and feel supported during this transition.
I thank you for that. If I'd really like to make the recommendation from this platform that because of what JWO and ISSA and some of our other students, Faith, mentioned about their concerns and anxiety, I think this is an opportune time for us to get ahead of the curve of any issues around messaging to the entire class. You guys have done an outstanding job of creating an environment that's stabilized, right? But let's share that with our class of 2020 broadly as a whole. And there are any number of platforms by which you can do that. Some of the most effective that I've utilized in my professional experience have been teletown halls that incorporate our students and their families to be able to answer questions that may be still ongoing, rumor mill issues that may be ongoing. And these can be controlled conversations that allow the adequate amount of efficacy on the part of the district and the families and students. So I really encourage you to have a much more broader district-wide dialogue with our class 2020 so that everybody hears the same thing. Thank you.
Absolutely. We hear you loud and clear, and we discussed that as an option during our cabinet meeting today. So we are putting some ideas together to see what that will look like and make sure that we plan for that type of broader engagement with cohort 2020.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam President.
Okay, we're going to move on to Board Member Beckerly.
Okay, can you hear me? First of all, this is amazing. I mean, truly amazing. And your thoughtfulness in terms of the different pieces, in terms of focusing on seniors, in terms of the social emotional learning, all of it, I knew it was going to be good because everybody's been talking about how great it is, but it's really amazing. Thank you. Just thank you for like exceptional effort and wisdom and thoughtfulness. Two things, or maybe even really one thing in particular I'm curious about. I keep thinking in my own mind, and maybe there's not as much a distinction as I imagine there is between distance learning versus effective use of an electronic classroom. And maybe I should say it this way. What I'm most excited about is that we have taken the huge step of getting Chromebooks or some sort of electronic device into the hands of every family. And I've said this to Dr. Dixon and to the fellow board members, and I'm going to say it publicly now, there's no going back. And it's up to our board to support you all in whatever way you need to make sure that this continues in the fall. And so I keep thinking that this is such a unique time in terms of having, obviously, for a lot of serious and concerning reasons, but also having this last quarter where we sort of have a suspension of accountability, I guess, is the way I keep thinking about it. And I keep thinking that there's this opportunity, or that we're now focusing on how to deliver distance learning in the fourth quarter and deliver a fourth quarter curriculum, when I would almost like to see us thinking about how can we figure out how to do the electronic classroom next fall, presuming we're all back in the classroom together, in a way that starts to really close the equity gap, because that's what's so exciting about where we are right now. We've got these, one of the biggest hurdles to closing that gap is getting technology in the hands of all of our students. And we've committed to doing that. And so I guess I would like us to be mindful of using this time now to prepare for that so we can hit the ground running in a 21st century equity gap closing sort of way, as opposed to focusing on being as concerned about delivering the fourth quarter curriculum. And in part, I say this because while there are families such as Dr. Pierce's where, the kids are engaged, the kids are supported, the parent is paying enough attention to realize that the coursework that her fifth grader is doing is really kind of fourth grade work, and how do we correct that? But there's also a lot of anxiety across the district, and it's hard on the teachers too, because they're doing this in real time, hitting the ground running with their families at home, and maybe with their husbands out of work, or single parents, all of this. And I guess to turn this around into a question, how much of this will allow us to pivot? How much of this is focused just on delivering fourth quarter curriculum versus how much of this is preparing us to really hit the ground running in a 21st century, out of the ballpark sort of way in the fall? Maybe that's the question.
So Board Member Beckerly, I love that you asked that question. I will tell you, some of the feedback from teachers has been tremendous. Some of the things that we've seen teachers do is inspiring.
Yeah,
we have some teachers that have done lessons that are just amazing. And the teachers that develop some of these online resources, some of our TOSTAs, some of the teachers they connected with in order to do this, just inspiring. It's amazing curriculum work and it's amazing instructional delivery. We have watched teachers of MD classrooms turn their whole apartment into a little classroom where they're projecting lessons online. And so we've been fascinated, and I will say, just thoroughly impressed with the work of the staff. And so in seeing that and their level of enthusiasm, wanting opportunities to have professional development around engaging with technology, offering blended opportunities, offering supportive opportunities, supplemental instruction, the platform I mentioned earlier, it is nothing compared to the teacher that we have in front of those children, the classrooms. And so what we have talked about, and so I know that Dr. Pierce was asking sort of about this, what are we doing moving forward? We have had feedback from some parents that say, I'd like to see more virtual opportunities, or I'd like to see more blended opportunities. And we are monitoring that feedback. We think we should be able to offer that in the future. We are trying to gather lessons from this. And so while this first effort is to get everything ready to go, and there wasn't a lot of time, there wasn't a lot of curriculum that we could just say, oh, we had this already. We developed a lot from scratch. And so now that it's there and people are using it and getting feedback from the users, the end users of these products, and the end users of the experience, the students and families, we are looking at how would this transform our culture? How would this change what we do moving forward? We believe we have the talented staff who could make miracles happen with technology that we may not have seen in other places, because it gives us another tool in our toolbox. So we are excited about the work that's happening. And I know I probably sound a little excitable right now, but I'm really, I have to say, again, I have been inspired by the work of our staff, our teachers, our administrators, and the creativity has been just amazing, the innovation. So I'm hoping that what we can do during this time is, yes, let's have a nice virtual offering for parents if that's what you want. And there are some learners that want that. There are some that don't. That would be their thing. Unfortunately, right now, necessity is virtual. However, what we'd like to consider is, what can we take from this experience and build out? We also have an LMS, a learning management system, that's going to come before the board. That's something we didn't have. It would have made this easier if we had it, but we didn't have it. So we're bringing that in front of you. We have done an abbreviated RFP process. We had started it before all of this happened. And so it's a time to inform what we do moving forward. Our curriculum adoptions are going to be informed by this. This has really been, it is a crisis. It's an awful time in history, but we have been able to get some, glean some great things from it because of the extraordinary efforts of people. And so we hope to continue to capitalize on that.
Yeah, and I think as of an extension of that, my one concern is the concurrence of rolling out all these things and doing all this great technology, and then holding teachers and students accountable in the same time frame. And I guess I would just really like to see us consider relaxing the throttle a bit, so to speak, on some of that stuff, to allow the creativity to soar and to not add undue stress in this incredible crisis, or this unprecedented crisis. I don't want to see that detract from the creativity, and so that's one concern. The other thought I've had, sort of big picture, and it was definitely in your, especially in Dr. Chapman's slides, I saw some reference to this, but I almost would like us to consider an equal objective to the curriculum objectives, to have parent engagement. And I say this because there are too many of our schools and too many of our students connecting with the parents and bringing the parents in and creating community is a huge obstacle to the student success, to the building success, to our district success. the breakdown of the community is a foundational problem that is largely at the core of why our students struggle. And now that we have the Chromebooks in the families' homes, it seems to me that this is a perfect time, especially because of the suspension of accountability, to say to the teachers, okay, let's make connecting with your students' parents a priority. And I think we could probably use a lot of the tools that, or even team up with Ms. Gillison's Office of Engagement in terms of some tricks or trades or ideas, because how cool would it be if, in addition to making sure we were delivering this electronic curriculum, each teacher was tasked with reaching out and having 3 or 4 interactions with the children's parents, and maybe even have some sort of a contest, like if you can prove that you've had 5 emails with a teacher, you get a gift card, or I don't know. I'm just thinking outside the box, but it seems to me that we really need to be creative, and I think people think sometimes I'm trying to reduce expectations. I'd like to increase expectations on that front, because I know from experience that once you've connected with the parent, the child is learning increases exponentially, because everybody's on the same page. And I know any teacher will tell you that that's a huge piece of it. So I would love to see us be really intentional about establishing those relationships and using this technology and this new opportunity of having the technology available. Video chatting, other things, sending pictures of the dog to the parents or back and forth, or whatever ways you can connect and genuinely connect, so that, and when we come back in the fall, all of a sudden, some of those hurdles, some of those barriers that have kept parents from getting involved have started to break down. So that's another thing I would like to suggest. And I know it's on your radar. I'm just saying maybe we should make it a little more intentional.
Appreciate that. And we do work with Ms. Gillison, Dr. Chapman, Dr. Klein, Ms. Gillison and I. We tend to meet, of course, now that things have been focused on other areas, we definitely try and collaborate and coordinate our work efforts. So I think that those pieces of feedback, I know that, we'll take those into consideration.
I know we're hearing from Ms. Gillison a little bit later, so maybe she can address those as well. So let's go ahead and move on to Vice President Reyes.
Thank you, President Adair. So along the same lines, just wanted to kind of mention, as we move forward, we talk about equity in internet access. So I know some of our families are still struggling with internet access, and we're looking at different ways to alleviate that. So as Board Member Beckerly was talking about, if we want to go into the fall, we will need to continue to build those partnerships of free internet providers, some sort of assistance as we go forward into the future. I want to make sure that we're opening lines of communication with those providers. If we are committing as a district, or attempting to commit as a district, that we want to move forward in technology and ensure that our kids are continuing this type of learning, I think it's important that we not only connect them via internet, but also those of us who are living within the lack of means to pay for internet, that we'll need to look at what does that look like going forward. I also was concerned, or had a question about families that do have multiple children, multiple levels, and the parent is working, right? So whether we have a lot of single parents, we have dual parents, some people are still working, or even if they're not working, I think they're, like we said, we're in unprecedented times. We're in a time where we're all dealing with a lot of barriers and a lot of stressors. have we talked about tutoring or other options that we can provide to our kids to ensure that they're not falling behind? And then what kind, and I don't know if this is the right platform or I need to wait for Ms. Gillison's, what are the tools that we're providing to our parents so that they can feel more comfortable or have somebody to reach out to get more information on how they can help their children?
So in terms of tutoring, we are working on organizing staff. One of the things that Dr. Chapman talked about was expectations. And as a team, we looked at expectations based on role. So we are working on ways to organize staff so that they can provide additional support. So if I'm not assigned as a classroom teacher, what is it that I do to make sure that learning is moving forward? And that is something that as we're getting started, we are trying to identify what are the other roles to do that very thing. The one thing that we do not want or do not want to expect is that parents sit at home and they become the classroom teacher. I think it's unreasonable. Most of the parents, many parents are working and they're working from home. It would be very hard to do both things. I could imagine that if my children were still young, that would be difficult. And sometimes it's hard to teach your own kids. I know I would not have enjoyed having my own kids in my classroom because it doesn't have that same piece. You're not a teacher, you're mom, and so, or dad or grandma. But we are not looking to put extra burden on parents at this time. That is one of our goals. And so we are now looking at staff, and are there additional staff that could provide the additional support so that when a teacher is working with a group or working through looking at the data, looking at the progression, doing, as we mentioned with Dr. Pierce's question, tailoring that online platform to make sure it's meeting the needs of students, who else could also provide extra support, especially in the needs, when it's intervention based, tutoring based. And so we're working on that currently. We're looking at this first week and how things are progressing to kind of figure out how we can realign some of our staff.
And I'll assume that we're going to be needing to create some sort of guidelines and procedures and safeguards to ensure that if we do bring a tutor or any type of other adult than the teacher into a child's learning, that we are utilizing all safeguards to ensure that they're safe.
Yeah. Well, when it would be staff that we currently have, like instructional assistants, etc. So it wouldn't be a situation where we would be hiring outside for that. We have current staff that we can utilize.
Perfect. My other question is, all children are different. So there are a lot of children that have difficulties being an independent learner or a self-guided learner, right? So adult here sometimes, when I was in school, I was better in the afternoon and at night, wasn't so much of an early learner. I see my own junior who's a student struggling with creating their schedule. Adults have problems creating an own independent schedule, right? So what techniques, what tools are we providing to ensure that our kids are transitioning well? If online learning was the option, we have children that are really good at online learning, and a lot of them were already doing online learning. They were going to a whole different district and a whole different school. Our kids were coming to this district because there's either a need or a comfort level in having a real life person in front of you. So there's a combination that may be needed, and obviously we're lacking that. So what are those resources? What are those strategies that we're incorporating there?
So one of the pieces, and some of this, we may have other information, obviously, during the parent component, but one of the things that we have provided are schedules. The one thing that is nice is that virtual learning can basically take place at any time during the day. Now, teachers won't be working at 2 a.m, but we know some high school kids that's their time. They thrive, and it's not my time, but 2 a.m. may be a time for a student. So the platform itself is open at any time. Children can go on and work. Students can do any time frame. We actually have noticed that some of our platforms have increased usage, during this time frame as well. And so what we would say is we've provided a schedule. We don't want students to say, I like math, so I'm only going to do my math. they need to do all of it because it's necessary for them to have a well-rounded education. But we have provided schedules. Teachers have specific, and I think that Dr. Chapman mentioned that teachers are holding specific office hours. They're communicating with families a certain number of times a week. And so we're using that as part of the support. But one of the things that does help, and we have suggested to parents, have a schedule, and have a schedule that includes some opportunities for normalcy. Kids get free time during school. They get to go to lunch. They have recess. We have physical activities that we can have incorporated. Some of our phys ed teachers have offered many of those resources. And there are things online under the COVID page that parents can do that they have learning attached to them, but they're also fun. So we've tried to offer up some schedules. I know there's probably more with the parent involvement component. And so I'm sure she'll probably share some of that information as well. But that is what we've done from the academic lens, and then also from the expectations for teachers to connect with families.
Thank you. The other one is, so I've talked to several of my neighbors and friends who currently have multiple children in the district, and some of them have made a conscious decision to possibly not go and get a Chromebook because maybe they have electronics in their household, or there are some families that maybe only have one and maybe need multiples. How should a parent address that with the district? Who should they call if they do need more electronic assistance in their household?
And this is also a great question. Our Chief Information Officer has been charged with the distribution of laptops or Chromebooks. And so I'm sure she'll share the information. If you didn't get a Chromebook, here's what happens next. I know that's probably, well, I know it is part of her presentation. She'll be giving information to families. And also, if you're having trouble with the Chromebook that you have, here's what happens next. So if you'd like, we can defer if you'd like the answer now. I'm sure she could click in.
We can wait. And then my last question, so you touched a little bit on the social emotional learning piece. You know, as I work with an agency that has the social work piece, the emotionally behavioral piece, how can we share with our parents and our teachers and our community that there is a lot of stress. There's stress within the district. There's stress within the teachers, our kids, our parents, and that we're not trying to be, I guess, the bully. You know, we understand and want to help our students continue to learn. It's a requirement. It's state law. You know, it's unfortunate where we're at. I think you referenced the materials from the teacher's perspective, and maybe this is another question for Dr. Dixon. But as the parents navigating there, are we going to be including resources for them outside of that platform that they can go in? Because I think there's some concerns from some parents that they want to know that there's one central point that I can go to get all the things that I need, whether it's all my 4 kids, all the curriculum, the resources. And I know that's going to be very difficult for us, and we're attempting to do that. Are we driving the majority of the traffic to the portals, or are we driving them to the website, or are we doing a combination?
So for academics, we drive them to Clever. That has been in the guidance, the parent documents that were sent out. Here's the primary platform, here's Clever. And then everything that's academic is populated in Clever with icons, almost like when you look at your iPad, you just hit on the actual icon or your computer screen. For social and emotional resources, our social workers are pushing out lessons. So that would be something that a parent wouldn't necessarily ask a child to engage in. They're actually pushing some of that out. Our school counselors who work under Bill Mitchell are also pushing that out. Senior seminar is for seniors, but there are other types of groups that are happening in those 2 departments to support families and children. So similarly to what they've done in schools, they're also taking referrals from teachers. They're working on building out platforms where parents can actually access. And we would put everything as a district under the COVID-19 tab on the district website, which is right on the landing page. And so anything that a parent might need should be there. Anything related to accessing an academic platform would be right through the Clever sign-in.
And you just brought something up. So I come from I think I've mentioned before, my mom didn't know how to read or write. So are we providing any visual aids, any videos directing parents on some of these access points? Can we, maybe, I don't want to put us in that spot, but can we do some short videos, not only in English, but we may have to use some of our major languages because of our literacy rates. I want to ensure that we are not only communicating in writing, but also in a video or some way of media.
So some of our supplemental resources do have video attachment in every student's Clever login that's secondary that has Edmentum classes. They have a video tutorial. Here's how I use this. In some of our other sites, we have video tutorials of mostly for teachers, but also then for the parents and students. One of the things that we have our team working pretty quickly and almost round the clock on those translations. Our translators have been working with Michael Sain, our director of ESL. They've been working on getting those translations into our major languages, and they're trying to get that done as quickly as possible. We're using a lot of screencasts right now. Many of those things, and I would suggest that parents continue to check the website because we are constantly populating with new things that parents need to know, because as you know, legislation is trickling in, changes to policy are trickling in, and we're trying to keep up with that and keep up with the resources for the parents. So if it's not there today, it could be there tomorrow. It just depends on how fast we can get those things turned out.
Thank you. I apologize. I know we have a lot more presentations other than just the academic. I apologize, Dr. Dixon.
Okay, we have one last question on this from Dr. Pierce, who promises it's going to be quick. Dr. Pierce.
Thank you, Board President Adair. These questions were for Dr. Chapman, and earlier when I deferred to Board Member Coe, it was because I wanted to give my colleagues the opportunity to be able to answer their questions or ask their questions. But these are very important questions. My first question is, Dr. Chapman, you indicated that you are monitoring engagement. How are you monitoring that engagement? Is it the hours on the device? Is it the hours on the platform? And where's that data going once you've monitored it?
Thank you for that question. So all of the platforms that we're using provides us with immediate feedback. So we are pulling the data from all of those platforms. Our team, our teachers can pull that data. Our principals are certainly being asked to pull that data and look for student engagement. If student engagement is high one week but low another week, what questions are we asking to find out? Is there an issue? We just want to make sure that our kids are okay, they have access, and then find out if there are any barriers that we can help them overcome during this extended closure. So engagement, the reports include engagement, then they also include progress and data in terms of how the students are performing. And so any of the teachers or administrators that have admin rights can pull that data in real time. And then there's also parents that will be shared to provide parents and families with feedback as well.
One thing that you just mentioned and that we keep mentioning is this social emotional piece. Our students that are experiencing anxiety, depression, that are dealing with parents that are dealing with job loss right now might not know how to articulate what they're feeling. And given that they're only meeting with their teachers in some instances 30, 20 minutes, how are we really helping our most vulnerable students, the student that didn't pick up a Chromebook?
So that's where we are relying on our staff to reach out to all students, right, and make a connection. We're actually asking them to provide us with feedback on the frequency of just of those connections, so that we know that that outreach is happening for all of our students. And then if it's outreach with the students, it could be outreach with the families. And again, I mentioned earlier that we have intervention teams that are ready to be mobilized and provide support, be it virtually, to make sure that if there are resources that the family needs, Even during the last couple of weeks, as we've been reaching out to families, we would find out there's a family in need of something. And so it was our responsibility as well as honor to connect them with much needed resources in community or within the district so that they felt supported during this transition. And certainly those needs, just Maslow's hierarchy of needs, are those needs are prioritized. That comes first, right? So we want to make sure that we have an opportunity to ensure that our students and families' needs are met. Their basic needs are met first before we layer on the academic expectations.
Okay, Board Member Ragland has one last quick question.
Well, I don't know how quick it is, but I do want to go back to what Board Member Beckerly was discussing, because I think it's central to everything that we're doing right now. She used the term suspension of accountability, and I am gravely concerned that the perception may be that we are not holding ourselves accountable for student learning during this time. And I'd like to hear from Dr. Dixon on that. My immediate thoughts go to the widening achievement gap, particularly for African American students that we've been experiencing over decades with this district. I don't think that it would be a surprise to anyone that while we are in this period of transition, that if there's a loss of learning, that particularly African American students would experience it at a more disparate rate than any others. And so when we, from this vantage point, start talking about suspension of accountability, I want to first go on the record and say that is not my expectation, that we are not holding ourselves accountable for the education of our students. But I want to hear from our superintendent that this is, or at least some clarity from her viewpoint regarding the suspension of accountability, and if that is her expectation for our staff and for our students during this time, because that's very important to me. And I'm not sure that, I just don't want that to be the narrative for the district moving forward. So please address that for me directly.
Thank you, Board Member Ragland. I believe that we have to continue with our learning. We have high expectations for all of our students and our staff members, and we are not going to relax those expectations. Yes, these are unprecedented times, but we are working, and just talked, as Dr. Ocasio stated, look at what we've put together in 3 weeks after knowing that we had assessments that were done by, remember the PDK audit? We had the Phi Delta Kappa audit to come in and kind of give us some information about where we were with our resources. And in 3 weeks, our team have come together and said, we're going to put a curriculum together for our students to use district-wide. We're going to make sure we have resources for our teachers. Our learning cannot stop and will not stop. We're going to move forward with high expectations. That's why we said we're going to give out Chromebooks. Who needs a device? We're still looking to see how we can get hotspots for our students. We're still partnering with organizations to make sure that whatever the barriers that our students and families are facing, that we are going to help those families overcome those barriers. So when you hear from Alicia Gillison a little later, you're going to hear about the polling that they did, the inventory, the survey rather, that they did to see what exactly our families need. Yes, as Dr. Chapman stated, there is a hierarchy of needs. We know that our families need things. We're helping with our families, but we are an institution of learning, and we're going to make sure that learning does not stop. And I know the board has been very supportive in that. You have challenged us to make sure that we're being inclusive of all of our partners in education, and that we utilize this opportunity to get out in front of some of the trends. As it was stated before, a lot of our teachers are doing some amazing work in our classrooms, and those are the ones we want to put out in front and champion that work. We're the largest district in the state, and we are going to set the trend. That's our goal, is to be out in front and to show other districts how it's done, but how it's done together. So I think what Board Member Beckerly is saying is, don't forget about these other things, that we don't want to forget about, that our students are still facing some other challenges, our families as well. But my take has always been is that we're going to be leading. I remember when I said that we're going to be one of the top urban districts in the United States. I believe that, and we're going to do it because we are not going to relax on our expectations. And we are fighting for behalf of our students. We want our parents working with our students. We want to give resources to our parents, but we have said clearly, that our students will continue to be learning, our teachers will continue to be assisting our students as they have been. And so it's not going to stop. The team is not going to stop. I know you guys are not going to stop pushing for high standards and high expectations for this community. And thank you for wanting some clarification on that. But I think we've had the consistent stance that yes, and then go back to again for when you said about equity. We know there's an equity gap. We're meeting those. We are trying to make sure that those gaps do not continue. We provided various resources for students to catch up if they want further enrichment. Hey, they go after that. There are those modules on those websites for our students to do that. And we've said to our teachers, be encouraged. We're not going to stop. Do those outstanding lessons. Reach out to our students. We hope it's 2 to 3 times. We expect that it happens 2 or 3 times a week, but we know for some teachers it's going to be even more. So yes, we're going to set the pace. I'm excited. The team is excited. And let's go onward. Even in this time, unprecedented times, we can still be out front. I had a t-shirt on yesterday that says fear less. Are we nervous? Yes. Am I scared as a leader at times? Yes. But what motivates me is knowing that we have over 50,000 students and families who are depending on us to make good decisions every single day. And that's what we're going to do.
Thank you, Dr. Dixon. And I think we are done with this set of presentations. So as we transition to get the next set on, I do want to make an announcement about item 8. So if anybody is listening live and would like to provide any testimony about the public hearing on reemployment of Greg Summers, you need to call us at 614-365-3828. We will also put that number in the live Facebook, and you will talk with Dr. Stanford. Raise your hand. He's on camera right now, and he's going to be collecting the calls to see if anyone has any testimony they would like to provide. We will limit testimony to 2 minutes. So please go ahead and call that number, 614-365-3828, if you want to provide testimony on the agenda item, the reemployment of Greg Summers. So I will send it back to you, Dr. Dixon.
Okay, thank you. So now let's move on to operations and food service. So we're going to bring up Maurice Odom and Joe Brown next to talk about what we've been doing. And Joe, I know everyone wants to know, who is Joe Brown and who's the man behind the food service plan. So it's so excited to have Joe and Maurice for this next piece of the presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Dixon. I'm going to share my screen, so give me a moment. Okay, to Board Member President Adair, to Vice President Reyes, to the board members, Dr. Dixon, to Auditor Smith, and also to Treasurer Behort. Thank you for this opportunity for operation to share about Office of Food Service and the plan for feeding. Unfortunately, my role is just to go through the slides, so I'm going to turn it over to Joe Brown, Director Joe Brown, to be able to talk through the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you for giving me an opportunity to do that. And Mr. Olam's job is always more than just flipping to the side slide. So don't annoy you. I'm just going to share with you kind of an overview of what we're doing and why we're doing some of those things. I've got a few pictures for you to show some of the good work that our staff is doing, and then some data on some of the numbers and how we've been doing thus far. So if you remember, we started out 3 weeks ago with 13 sites. Currently, we're feeding at 15 sites. We made some of those changes in general. We realized that they were right. So we added some additional sites to be able to help the underserved parts of town. We are providing breakfast and lunch. Through the USDA, we're allowed to, remember, food service is a federal program. So although there has been some relief from some of the guidelines, there are still a number of federal guidelines that we have to follow. We do provide both breakfast and lunch, and one of those reliefs is that you can take the next meal at a current meal, or you can take more than one meal at a time, I should say. So when people come for breakfast, we have lunch available to them if they don't want to come back in the afternoon. Vice versa, when they come at lunch, we have breakfast available for them if they don't want to. So because people, well, I'm sure students are very busy with their schoolwork first thing in the morning. But by lunchtime, they're ready to come and get lunch, and they can take the next breakfast with them. Our service is decentralized. If you'll notice the schools, for those of you, and most of you, I believe, are familiar with our food service operation, we have two different types of service that we provide in our schools. Primarily, our elementary buildings are heat and serve kitchens, where there isn't the opportunity to do a lot of cooking or food preparation because there's not the equipment there. Our secondary schools are full service kitchens where we do have that opportunity. We're using those secondary kitchens, and the reason behind the decentralized service, it is by design. There's a number of school districts around the country, both big and small, that have had to both either discontinue their feeding program altogether or temporarily discontinue it because by providing centralized service, somebody in those locations has gotten ill, and because someone got ill, they had to shut down what they provide throughout the city. By being decentralized, if something happens at one of our 15 sites where someone gets ill, the other 14, I'm sorry, can continue to maintain service. Also, if something happens there and we had to shut down a school site, we could quickly open up a school site in that part of town to be able to continue to take care of those children in that need. Best practices reviewed by Health Services in Columbus Public Health. You know, one of the things that's most important to us is with our staff and those frontline staff out there interacting with the public on a daily basis, how do we keep them safe? And how do we make sure that they're well taken care of? So Health Services has gone out and met with all of my staff and talked about what they do to keep them safe. Columbus Public Health is visiting these sites every 2 weeks to continue to make sure that we are doing the best we can to be able to take care of our students, our children, and our community. The last thing is rotating produce markets. We started today actually working in partnership with Columbus Public Rec as well as the Mid-Ohio Food Bank. And we have rotating produce markets. Today they are at West High School in Wedgwood, and they went tremendously well. Each one of our feeding sites will have a mobile produce market once every 2 weeks. So they'll continue to rotate around town, and they've been very well received. I'm sorry, I don't have a headset, and if people are having trouble hearing me, and one won't hook up to my computer, so I apologize for that. I'll do the best I can though. The next 2 slides are really just our crews out there showing you what they're doing. Maintaining their 6 feet apart, helping to take care of our families out there. So if you want to go to the next slide, Maurice. Again, more of the same. And our staff has done a phenomenal job of stepping up and taking care of our community. The last one is just our meal counts. We've served over 90,000 meals thus far. The blue line is week 1, week 2, and the gray line is week 3. We saw about 22% growth from week 1 to week 2, and about 16% growth from week 2 to week 3. We plan on continuing to see growth. This is important. The other thing I didn't say before is the model we have, we feel very strongly it's sustainable. None of us know how long this is going to last, but I suspect, as many of you, that this will continue to happen potentially further into the year than we're currently set to handle it. And we can continue to take care of our community in this way of this time. So at this point, that is all I have.
Board Member Brown, I believe you have a question.
Yes, I do. I'm wondering, are we hearing from folks who are unable to travel to the sites to do the pickup? And assuming that we are hearing from some folks, how are we accommodating those? And related is the question of, can one person pick up meals for several neighbors in the same trip? We don't want necessarily those several families to carpool. That would violate the physical distancing standards. But that would, can one person, deliver a handful to friends or to neighbors and others?
So up until last week, the answer to that was no, because it was again based on that federal guidance that the student had to be present in order to get a meal. They worked on a change in that, and now students do not need to be present to get a meal. The rules and regulations say parent or guardian. Although we're not checking IDs, we're asking people who they need to collect meals for them, and we're taking their word at face value. We're doing everything we can to feed kids in that regard. So there are parents can pick up for multiple children. We also have some teachers that pick up for special needs students that go to their school. Stepped up and said, you know what, this kid, either they have a compromised immune system, or coming to the school and back and forth is challenging for them because of their particular challenges. So we have teachers, we have community groups that have offered to do that sort of work to be able to help take care of our students. So we've done some of that in special circumstances, and we're open to continue to do that as those needs arise.
Thank you. And as far as the folks that we hear from, if any, who are unable to travel to the sites to do a pickup, they either don't have car transportation, or they're very uptight about taking a bus where they may come into contact with others.
So you're asking how will we get meals to them?
Yes.
I know, and potentially they might be able to talk about, we work with our Office of Engagement, Alicia Gillison and Scott Barner,
Sure.
and with different community groups that are willing to take food out to other groups. So we have a couple of those in place at this point. When people volunteer or offer to do something like that, all those requests have gone through the Office of Engagement, and we've referred them that way. And then they're filtering through that and then bringing back that information back to us.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Board Member Dr. Pierce.
Thank you so much, President Adair. I appreciate it. So first of all, I want to say thank you to all of our food service workers and security. I've had the opportunity to go to some of the sites and just see our babies come and see how much they appreciate those meals, to speak with our families as they come to get those meals. I have two questions. One, when I go to our Linda McKinley site, I see that it's situated behind two dumpsters. And while we have the police officer there, is there something we can do with signage just to make it a little bit more appealing to say, hey, we're here? Because we have to recognize some of these babies are coming by themselves. They're not coming with the dogs.
Yes, you're right. And Linda McKinley, you're right, is one of our more, the feeding location is a little more challenging to find. We do have some signage. We've worked with our communications office to develop that. I will make sure we go out and visit there tomorrow and make sure they have enough. And if they don't have enough, we will get them more.
Awesome. And then my second question then relates to some of these babies are going every day and they're getting those meals that are available. Are we documenting the names of those students so we know if they need additional resources, additional services? We want to get to a point that even after COVID-19 is over, that we have still mobilized and galvanized our community members to meet the needs of our students and families. So recognizing that we stepped up, we're providing the food for our babies, but we cannot sustain this forever. We're sustaining this for this particular moment, this particular crisis, but we can partner with other nonprofits, with community-based organizations to meet those needs that our family members have. So is there a way that we can, protecting FERPA, document the students and families that are coming to get those services and then connect them so their needs are met on a regular basis?
So I don't know the answer to that question, but that's something I will work with Mr. Oldham and Dr. Dixon and our district leadership, determine if there's a good way to collect that information and what we can do with it. So I am making a note. Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice President Reyes.
Thank you, President Adair. So Director Brown, I just wanted to mention, as a person that works in the food pantry, so there are food pantries out there that are partnering with the district to ensure that there's over 170 pantries in the Franklin County area throughout the different areas of town. People will have to call 211. They have to call 211 Hands on Ohio, and they'll direct them to a food pantry that's close by. But what I wanted to state is there are some food pantries out there, like a St. Stephen's, who are partnering with Children's Hunger Alliance, and they're providing sack lunches also. There are churches that are providing meals. So there are a lot of other options. I want to make sure that we communicate that to our community and to our families, that there are a lot of partners working really, really, really hard to supplement what Columbus City Schools is doing. We've had a lot of discussions. We are seeing an increase of people coming to the food pantries. It is very difficult for delivery services. Just want to put that out there because I know a lot of people have asked if we can deliver meals, if pantries can deliver meals. I know the Office of Aging is doing some delivery of meals for elderly. There's very limited volunteers out there delivering meals. So that is very difficult. So what all the food service organizations and are trying to do is widen the net so that people, perhaps if they are walking, maybe there's something a little bit closer than one of our schools. So I want to encourage our families to call 211 and ask to see if there's anything viable. And then obviously call us if you do have a unique need where you're unable to attend, and let's see how we can partner together with you and maybe some of our local community agencies to get you what you need.
I would agree with you. I mean, all those different community partners, it's both sad and happy when you see, especially like when we do the mobile produce markets. It's so, it makes you happy to see people step up and be able to hand this stuff out. It makes you sad that 30 minutes before it starts, there's a line of cars waiting to get that food. So it is certainly with mixed emotions that you look at that. You're right. There's a lot of churches, community agencies, private businesses that are offering meals to students out there as well. We encourage people to go wherever we want to be there as a service to them. And I feel like some of our people like to mix it up a little bit. I don't eat at the same restaurant every day. Well, I don't eat at a restaurant every day, but I wouldn't eat at the same restaurant every day. So if there's an opportunity to come here one day and go there another day, some of our community members do that as well. And it's important to me that they get fed, and whatever avenue works best for them, we're happy with.
And Dr. Brown, what we've noticed at the food pantry is that people may not be paying attention to the information today because possibly they may still be employed or they have other means. And then tomorrow, when they unfortunately lose their job, that's when they're looking for the resources. So we have had a lot of calls of people saying, I didn't get it yesterday. I just found out about this. So again, I want to thank you. Thank you to you. Thank you to all our food service workers and all of our OPSI staff who are out there, district staff who are out there and helping. I know there's a lot of volunteers, there's teachers, there's other people outside that are doing a phenomenal job of ensuring that our kids continue to receive those meals.
They are, thank you.
We're going to go back to Board Member Brown.
Hi, just very briefly, Ramona's comments reminded me that because we've got so many elderly in the community and all of the various food programs seem to be cooperating really well, Franklin County Commissioners recently took off the income verification requirements entirely. So if those over 60 call senior options, they can have meals delivered at no cost and without income verification. Thanks. And Joe, thank you for all the good work.
Yeah, big shout out to the whole food service team and operations. I did want to ask the question directly just because I've been asked it directly. Why is it that our buses cannot go deliver food?
Well, there's a number of reasons why it makes it challenging. And I know the other large urban school districts in Ohio have looked at this as well. First and foremost, I guess two reasons stick out in my mind. The first is which, if you're going to prepare meals for buses to be distributed, you'd need to have shelf-stable meals, and you'd need to prepare a lot of them in bulk. Because if you don't have shelf-stable meals, then you need refrigeration in buses, which we don't have. If we were to send that stuff out to schools in bulk, then we would the only way we could really pull that together and do it in the volume that we would need to have it would be to utilize the Food Service Production Center, which takes away our decentralized production and puts us more at risk of getting my staff sick and then potentially losing the opportunity to continue this service. A number of school districts around the country that started with buses have slowly transitioned away from it because they felt like it wasn't a sustainable model. Where we feel the model we have right now is sustainable. I think people will continue to come.
Thank you. And you mentioned briefly that if someone needed help due to a situation that we were delivering on an extreme basis, if someone does need help, where do they reach out?
So this might be I believe it's to the Office of Engagement. Do we still have I don't know the best way to reach out to the Office of Engagement. So maybe Alicia Gillison can speak to that. But that would be the best way. Up there, it came up on the screen. Engage, ENGAGE, at columbus.k12.oh.us. So that would be the best way to be able to pass that on, and we'll do what we can to take care of you.
Great, and we'll put that in the Facebook live feed as well. Engage at columbus.k12.oh.us. I think that is all the board questions for this part of the presentation. I'll turn it back to you, Dr. Dixon.
Okay, thank you. Next, we're going to have our partnership and engagement, and it's amazing that remember, this is a new office to the organization, as was Dr. Chapman's transformation office. And when we're thinking about partnerships and engaging, did we ever think that we were going to need this department during these unprecedented times? And I shared with Alicia and her team, if never before we needed them now, and they have just done a great job just galvanizing partners together, listening to our stakeholders, listening to our parents. So they are here tonight, she and Scott Varner, to do a presentation on what's been happening in their departments around our partners. And I would like to say too publicly, thank you to all of our partners who've stepped up when needed. And we know we have more work to do, but on behalf of the district, and I know the Board of Education, we want to say thank you. So Alicia, to you now. And we can't hear you, Alicia or Anna.
Treasurer Bahoric, Auditor Smith, Superintendent Dixon, and Director Smito. We appreciate the opportunity to share with you the work of the Department of Engagement. During this crisis, our work is to enlist, engage, and rally many of our community partners in support of our students and our families. From the start of this health emergency, Dr. Dixon prioritized making sure students are safe and have access to the resources they need to be healthy and engaged at home. And the team, the Department of Engagement team, stepped up and helped to answer that call. And many of my team members are online tonight, along with our community partners. So allow me a moment to say thank you to all of the partners that have stepped. And I appreciate that gratitude. So many of our partners appreciate the work of Dr. Ford and our teams throughout the district for stepping up during this time of crisis. When we launched the Department of Engagement, you're right, Dr. Dixon, it was just 8 months ago. And we centered on a mission statement that read, the Department of Engagement will link, align, and grow our district's school, home, and community resources to maximize student achievement and growth. And during this crisis, we've put a specific focus on providing equity and access they need. The engagement team created an ever-evolving community resource repository. The Family Resources section on the StaySafeCCS.org website includes contact information for more than 110 organizations and local businesses, which can help families with everything from getting free groceries, free internet service, to free educational activities and games for their students. There's even information on what a family member can do if they're struggling with depression, anxiety, or even need help paying bills during this crisis. Because we know when a family is in crisis, they don't want to have to sift through these robust lists. So we try to make our page user-friendly, and so that they user-friendly and easy to access. So they just click on the image if they need the help. If you think about our EL communities, our non-English speaking communities, we have pictures that capture the essence of the repositories. Next, we're linking, and this went live on March 14th. This is monitored daily, and we send a direct communication who signs up. Now, we've also created a new email address, and President Adair, you shared that address. If you need help, if you want to volunteer, please email us at engage@columbus.k12.oh.us. Our volunteers are working. More than 90 of our volunteers were at our elementary buildings last week as part to help our tech teams with our Chromebook distribution. And volunteers, we thank each and every one of you for that. Members of the engagement team are also linking with the networks of community-wide social services and direct service agencies, and you see those listed on this slide. In addition, we have a dozen of partners that provide direct supports at our schools, especially during the brief time that buildings were open during Chromebook distribution. Organizations such as Rock City Church, Gordon Food Services, and Family Mentor Foundations handed out groceries and boxed lunches while students signed out their laptops. Moving to alignment, we want to make sure that all of our key stakeholder groups were aligned with the most up-to-date information about how our district was responding to this coronavirus crisis. We've held several conference calls with all of our major stakeholders, and you can see them listed above. And we continue to update them on a weekly basis. The purpose behind our calls was threefold: to share information, mobilize community resources, and recruit new partners. In the calls, we provide up-to-date information to our partners so that they have an understanding of what CCS is doing and how we're responding. We also ask partners to share our information with their constituents. And we heard what our partners were planning to do so that we might align their work and maybe even engage some others. These calls actually led to the creation of the Partnership and Action Team, which I'll talk about in just a moment. There we go. Another important component of aligning our work was the Family Needs Survey. I've heard it mentioned here several times tonight, but this was critical to the work that we're doing. The Family Needs Survey went live on March 19th, and we shared it through social media, emails, and it's on our staysafeccs.org website. And in addition, we work with the Office of Accountability to post this information in Infinite Campus. So when parents visited Infinite Campus to check a child's grade, they can click the link and go directly to the Family Needs Survey. We collected more than 2,600 responses, with more coming in every day. So let me share a couple of the results that helped align the work that we're doing. One of the first things that we wanted to know in a survey was how many families were visiting our grab and go sites for the free breakfast and lunch. As you can see, the majority of our families who responded to the survey said they didn't really need help with breakfast and lunch right now. And that lends to what Vice President Reyes was saying. Another 13% says, yes, we have visited the food sites. And about a quarter of our families didn't come either because there wasn't an adult to take the child to the site, or they didn't have information, or they didn't know about the sites. Next, we asked families to check the categories they believe their family needed help with. And here are the major responses. Nearly half needed ways to help their child learn at home. And nearly that same number said they needed a computer for online learning. Several families wanted fitness and recreation activities, but nearly a quarter, 1 in 4, said they didn't need any services. And I'm going to keep saying right now, because things are changing as we are going into our second month of this coronavirus. Now, here's an important note to share. Our district has been able to address 2 of the top needs by launching the online academy, way to go, teaching and learning, and distributing the Chromebooks, Wanda and her team. Also, we know needs at home are changing. As I said before, this crisis is moving into the second month and maybe beyond. So we recently reset the survey and added a couple of new questions to find out what families need now. We work with our communication team to ask families to submit new responses because the Family Needs Survey is critical in aligning and mobilizing our stakeholders. So the survey that they will see says Family Needs Survey 2. As I mentioned, the survey and our stakeholders call led to the creation of our Partnership in Action team. Hi team, I know they're working and watching. Originally, we were going to call it a task force, but in these critical times, we needed our partners to take active roles and have a sense of urgency to identify, mobilize, and align the community resources our families were most asking for. The Department of Engagement enlisted more than 25 local partners to address the needs highlighted in our Family Needs Survey. Our Partnership in Action team is actively working to connect families with free supports and services through 5 committees. These committees are, we have a Food Access Committee. This committee is identifying more ways for families to access free healthy meals. This includes a focus on the third meal, such as dinner and weekend meals. And this committee is going to be critical as we come up on spring break. Our second committee, supporting our immigrant and new Americans. And this committee is coordinating services for the families of our English language learners and providing access to information in their own language. Our third committee, supporting our students. This committee has mobilized additional academic supports for our students at home. And our partners at I Know I Can, the team is leading and making phone calls to our at-risk seniors, keeping them motivated and keeping them on track for graduation. And that's a 1-2 punch. We call them to keep them motivated and encouraged, and it's followed up by the counselors, the building principals, and the teachers. So I heard Dr. Chapman say it, I heard Dr. Dixon say it. We want our kids to know that we see them and they matter and they're important. Our fourth committee is Community Resources. Now this committee took the results of the Family Needs Survey and identified new partners and specific solutions to address needs. And our fifth committee is Communication and Information Sharing. This group is supporting our district's communication efforts by tapping into those community influencers and networks of partners to get important messages out. Here's a list of our Partnership in Action team. And this is just a snapshot of some of the members on the team. Now, I always fear that when you create a list like this, there might be 1 or 2 that you miss. So to everyone on the team, we appreciate you. And I say thank you once again. And it's this kind of collaboration that allows us to grow the resources available to our families and grow the number of partners working with us. For example, our Committee on Supporting Our Immigrants and New Americans developed the C-Bus Village website. It's an online repository of information geared specifically to our non-English speaking families and businesses, with translated health information sheets and videos from the Center for Disease Control and ways to prevent misinformation. We also have included maps to food pantries, like you were speaking to, Vice President Reyes. And our information efforts have grown as well. I have participated in 2 PAL Talk conversations with hundreds from the Somali community. PAL's Talk is a forum where I call in and there's an interpreter, and I share our updates, and then there's an opportunity for them to ask me questions. The first time I participated in the meeting, there were 123 community members on the phone. I participated Saturday, that number had grown to over 350. And that partnership is through Our Helpers, and it is an organization based in the Northland community. So we're growing access to food in 2 ways. This week, our community partners at Mid-Ohio Food Bank and Columbus Recreation and Parks are providing fresh fruits and vegetables at mobile produce markets at all 15 of our grab and go sites. You heard Joe talk about that. And our partners at Children's Hunger Alliance, well, they're finalizing plans to distribute boxed meals with a tentative start date of April the 20th. When we think about healthcare, we're growing our partnership with Nationwide Children's Hospital, who's offering their mobile health units at South High School on Tuesdays, East High School on Wednesdays, and West High School on Thursdays. These mobile health units are there from 8 a.m. to 3. And this is to help students who still need access to basic health care. And each day, our list of new partners continues to grow, including recent help from Verizon, the Ohio Mental Health Network, Value City, Big Lots, and even Lyft, who we're asking to help provide free transportation to our families without cars. I believe the work of the engagement team and our community partners, we are making a difference, and we're growing our potential, to engage with partners in a deeper, stronger, more sustainable, and robust way. The work we're doing and the infrastructure that we're creating and serving our students and families today, and we are building a framework and foundation for a stronger tomorrow for Columbus City Schools. We're working in our purpose and aligned with our mission. I have to give credit to our superintendent who had the vision and the foresight to set up a Department of Engagement for Columbus City Schools. In closing, let me say as loudly and as boldly as I can from my Zoom box, thank you again to all of our community partners, our principals, our administrators, our staff, and my colleagues in each of our departments. And a special shout out to Maurice and Joe. Not a day goes by without me saying at least once, and you probably all heard it, teamwork makes the dream work. And that's because we truly are a Columbus team making this effort work for thousands of our students and our families each day. With that, I'll take questions, but I also want to share, because I heard it brought up several times, something specifically for parents. So PACT in the Ohio State is launching a parent university that is funded by our Franklin County commissioners via Franklin County Job and Family Services. Really excited about that. And if there are parents out there that need help working with their young people, Columbus Metropolitan Libraries has their homework helpline, and parents, you can call that homework helpline and they can help you as well. So now I encourage those who are watching online to email their questions or their generous offers of support through our new email address, and that's engage@columbus.k12.oh.us. And with that, I'll open up for questions.
Thank you so much, and just thank you to the work. That was amazing. You guys have done so much. Being a new department within our district, I mean, wow, just mind-blowing work.
Thank you.
Gathering and getting everyone together and really taking a holistic approach to helping our students. So your entire team deserves a big congratulations. We were going to go to Board Member Pierce.
Thank you so much, Board President Adair. Chief Gillison, thank you so much for that great presentation. We truly appreciate the work that you and your team are doing to engage our community in meaningful ways. During your presentation, you noted that you have a plan or strategy to institutionalize these partnerships. Can you provide me with one action item, one strategy on that plan and strategy, again, to institutionalize these partnerships beyond this COVID-19 situation?
Absolutely. So when we think about our partnership and actions team, it was born out of this situation that we have right now.
Chief Gillison, I'm going to interrupt you for just a second. It seems we are having technical difficulty with our Facebook, so we need to pause for a moment to try to get that back up so we can comply with public meeting.
So, Mr. Wortman, while we are preparing, could you unmute Scott Varner's microphone as well?
Okay, it looks like we are now back on live. So sorry for that pause for maybe those that were watching on YouTube. Dr. Pierce, will you please re-ask your question?
Yes, thank you again, President Adair. So the question for Chief Gillison is, how are we institutionalizing these partnerships so they are operating in our district beyond just the COVID-19 situation?
Thank you for that question. President Adair, to Board Member Pierce's question, when you talk about operationalizing, so from here on out, there will be someone on our team that will participate in that PAL Talk conversation with the Somali community, and we're working with the Nepali community. So this is not just a one and done. The beauty of the partnership in action, the leads of those committees are our outside partners. For instance, Jared Berger of Children's Hunger Alliance, he leads that food access committee. Tasha Fowler and T Street, they lead the community resource committee. Jennifer Drury of ETSS, Ethiopian Talawahido Social Services, lead the committee with Americans and immigrants. So when I say that we are a team, we are a team, and we work together just like that.
Excellent. You also mentioned that we have been working with I Know I Can to ensure that our seniors are getting check-ins and touch points. Can you, if this is in your area, can you speak to how our seniors are also getting help with their college applications, their scholarship applications, their FAFSAs? What are we doing to ensure that we keep them prepared and ready for college and career access?
Thank you for that question, and that's twofold. So we have our point of contact, our high school counselors, and I Know I Can. So I Know I Can is not only calling our at-risk seniors, they are continuing working with our students who've applied to college, want to apply to college, make sure their FAFSA is completed, and they've gone above and beyond. They're even working with students in the area colleges that graduated from CCS that had to leave their dorms because of COVID-19 to ensure that they have some place to go. So those are two ways. One, our counselors are continuing their work, and then
my last and final question is this health emergency, as you refer to it, I like that term, this health emergency is bringing to the forefront a number of social inequities. So when we talk about our families not having access to the internet, and I applaud your team for helping to identify parking lots. Again, knowing that that's not a permanent solution, but finding solutions so our students can have access to the internet. Having access to technology is not enough. We need to change the conversation and expand the framework so people understand the true inequities that we have in this district. So how is your department using this as an opportunity to reframe that conversation beyond the let's just give babies Chromebooks, but let's deal with the true inequities, and that we need to make sure it's meaningful homework and not busy homework. We need to make sure that it's affordable internet and not just internet for this moment.
Thank you. That was a really big question. So I'm going to try to eat this elephant one bite at a time. All right. So when we talk about ensuring our kids have internet, there was discussion, and there still is discussion, because Columbus Metropolitan Library, their internet spans out to their parking lot. And then Wandana, our chief of information and technology, we're looking at our buildings, but that's only one way. So we're looking at this holistically. So we are going and knocking on the doors of Verizon, knocking on the doors of AT&T and T-Mobile to see if we can get hotspots for our students. And I believe there's a piece of legislation there tonight that you all may be looking at, and that's a victory. And that victory is ours together, because that's working with our information and technology engagement and our partners that I Know I Can to make this come to fruition. But this is not the end, because we have to continue working. When we talk about equity and access in Columbus City schools, we have 50,000 students, and they all have different needs. So it's going to take all of us working together to make sure that we can support our students.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, we're going to go to Board Member Reyes, but before we do that, I just want to remind everyone that we did have a little service interruption during that time, and we were not live on Facebook. The board did not deliberate. We did not discuss anything. We stopped and we reconnected our connections to make sure that you, the public, knew exactly what was going on. We do have an uninterrupted re-recording if you want to verify that. And so now I will turn it over to Vice President Reyes for her question.
Thank you. Chief Gillison, thank you very much for your presentation. Just, I don't know if there are questions or just, well, there are questions. So getting 20% response rate, almost 20% response rate on a survey is great work. My question is, if people still want to provide feedback to that survey, is it still available? Is it also available in multiple languages? And if so, where can I access it?
Thank you for that question. Yes, the survey, the link is still live. Now, we froze the last survey and with over 2,600 responses. And so after we froze that survey, we launched the new one using the same link because we don't want to confuse people, right? And since that was launched yesterday, we have almost 2,000 responses. So all of family, a student, all you have to do is go to www.staysafeccs.org, or that's on our front page. Scott Wortman worked with us to ensure it was so they didn't have to fish for that information. And we're going to continue to get that information out. All of our partners with the Partnership in Action team, they're sharing that information with their constituents because we want this data to guide how we respond to what our parents need.
Thank you for that. So as you stated, you were tentative to put the partner list up there. We know there are a lot of partners. There's a lot of communities. We have over 101 languages spoken in the district. There's new communities being that evolved in the district. If an organization or a person wants to engage with your division, what should they do?
Well, if you want to get engaged, what you have to do is go to engage@columbus.k12.oh.us. And that was my sensitive ring, but get it engaged. But if you want to engage with us, we welcome you. And that list, I just want to clarify the list that I showed before, those are the actual partners in the partnership, Partnership in Action. And since the inception of that team, several partners have called and said, hey, we want to be a part of that team because they heard about it. And we just recently added someone from Franklin County Job and Family Services to the team. And there was a member of the Millage community, the Millage Committee that Stan referred to me. And then we were inviting him also to join.
Yes, thank you. And then, and I'm going to assume it's the same way, Chief Gillison, if somebody wants to provide you or the district with a resource that is available for community, do they go through the same channel? Are you the appropriate department to provide that? There's a lot of resources. There's a lot of misinformation.
Absolutely.
So would your department be the correct department to reach out to with a resource and correct information?
Absolutely. And once again, they would go to engage@columbus.k12.oh.us. Or if you go to our website, there is a volunteer donation clearinghouse where someone can leave their information. And our team, we man that every day. I also want to go back. I didn't realize I didn't answer all of your question about the Family Needs Survey. Yes, no matter what language you speak, you go to that survey and there are right up at the top, if you speak Somali and it's written in Somali, then call this number. And there's someone from our ESL department that's waiting to translate in all of our 5 major languages.
Thank you. I just want to give you kudos. You do have a member that reached out to my organization that works with immigrant and refugee population and had 4 or 5 of us on a call asking us questions, pertinent questions to the communities that we serve. So they are reaching out and engaging us to be part of your
reach out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, it looks like there are no additional questions. So Dr. Dixon, back to you.
Okay, thank you. So we have 3 more presentations here. So the next one they can kind of follow suit. We have our Chief of Technology, and followed by our Chief of Accountability, and with Eric Roush with our legislative responses. So we're going that order. We'll talk about technology next, and Wandana can talk about the amazing job the technology team has done, really impressive. And then we'll follow that by virtual enrollment. So Dr. Klein has her team has been working too. This online platform is we're really amping up our opportunities. And then finally with Dr. Roush. So we can just go in that order, and those would be the final 3 presentations under my report.
President Adair, Vice President Reyes, esteemed members of the board, Dr. Dixon, Treasurer Bahorek, Internal Auditor Smith, Director Smido, and my colleagues. Good evening to all of you. Well, I did it. It's my first presentation to the board. I've been here probably 4 months, Dr. Dixon, and in the 4 months, I just remember 2 weeks before we closed, I sent the 100-day report to Dr. Dixon and Dr. Stanford. So that's as fresh as you can get. But I'm glad to be presenting to you, what we did with technology to enable virtual learning. Are you all able to see my screen?
No, we have to push the share button, share the
yes.
share screen. Okay, gotcha.
Able to see it now?
No.
Oh, okay. All right, there you go. So Tracy's team worked very hard to put a very comprehensive virtual learning platform. So we are enabling virtual learning through technology. We heard Dr. Dixon say again and again in address to our families, and it's very important to her. Learning cannot and should not stop because our schools are closed physically to enable the learning plan. What was our goal? The goal was to maximize learning for our students. And how would we do it? We talked about social inequities. We talked about one of the social inequities is economic, and that means less devices for our kids at their homes, or some of them don't even have devices. So here's keeping in equity in mind too, we came up with some initial guidelines. We said students of cohort 2018, 2019, we still have some students per household. That was our initial guideline. And the reason is we are not a one-to-one district in terms of technology. We do have that can be handed out to our kids. So keeping initial guidelines, what is key? In just under 10 days, we planned and distributed approximately 15,480 devices to our students and their families. We households. They now have access to a CCS provided Chromebook today. How did we activate the plan? Once the decision was made, we started planning and preparing immediately. I wanted to expand on the preparing piece. If you visited our schools, which all of you have, you notice that our Chromebooks sit on carts. These carts are charging stations, so students use them and put them back in the carts. But for us to be able to give them to a student, we have to pull each of these Chromebooks from the cart and get the associated power cord with it and prep it, disinfect it, given the current health emergency, and make sure that we are handing out clean devices to our students. So the prep work across our schools took us 1 or 2 days, but we were able to parallel process this, geek term, sorry. We were able to distribute as well as prep another school at another level. The week of March 23rd,
Madam CIO, you have some blocks that are, it just moves. Something, it's okay. Just keep going.
Okay, I sorry. So the 23rd, we decided to focus on our high schools. And what throughout the process is every evening we met as a team. This team was Dr. Chapman's team, Dr. Klein's teams. We constantly engaged with our engaged team. We worked with Maurice Oldham and his operation. We were able to track all this in IC thanks to Greg Buzinski. And plan, depending on the data we received, the 2 o'clock, press meetings by the governor. We were working towards a moving target. One was based on our data analysis and action we needed to take, and the other one was the new executive orders that were issued to combat COVID-19. By April 1, we completed Chromebook distribution across all school grade levels. Remember, we started by saying we'll do just high schools the week of 23rd, but the week of 23rd, we already started distributing, completing middle schools and all our elementary schools. And we were done with the mass distribution. And, we collected data, and it was like, the next steps, are we done? By no means we are done. We want the learning to continue. We to have access to these devices in a in an ongoing from an ongoing perspective. So we have created, once the kids come back from spring break, and that is the number to call, 614-365-6471. They can start calling from that Monday, April 20, to that line, and we'll schedule appointments, and we will hand out Chromebooks. These are for students that missed the communication, missed the day, and couldn't get there because of transportation issues, or Vice President Reyes alluded to some of this, right? There are students, we went with the 1 device per household guideline, but there could be, we came across a family with 9 students in their family, and 1 Chromebook is definitely, may have individualized education plans. They have to have a device of their own. Most of these students already have been given a device, but there could be exceptions, and we'll handle them, and we will make sure they have device. This also applies to all new enrollments. The district is also doing enrollments, ongoing central enrollments. So the new student that comes into our district and enrolls will get a device right there. But they have to call this number and schedule an appointment. And for all other technology-related questions and repairs, right, we understand the Chromebooks can break and they can get battered. And we understand that, students can have issues with them. Remember, it could be as simple as, hey, my Chromebook's not switching on, and we can remind them, did you charge it? Because remember, they're used to putting it in a cart and it charges itself, but it's a good reminder to them to charge it. So it could be simple questions. We ask that they call the IT help desk at the number provided, 614-365-8425. We have expanded our help desk to include multiple of our technologists to assist all parents and students. And we have also put a lot of auto-attended messages to help them navigate our queues better, because it's easy to get onto the issue and get frustrated if the queue is very long. So we're trying to address every possible scenario so our parents and families have a scene. And like I said, we were done with the mass distribution, the scheduled distribution by 4/1. There were still some school administrators that wanted to meet their families that missed the dates and hand them Chromebooks. So you can see that numbers, pretty significant numbers too. And we continue to have those numbers. And that's happening through this Thursday, right before spring break. Then they can call the central number to schedule and get a device. This is distribution by grade. The cohort of 2020, and then the other cohorts. So you can see the distribution by grade. This is distribution. The blue is the distribution by grade level, and the red is the enrollment by grade level. If you add all this, it's 53% of our distinct student population of about household numbers, and this is by enrollment to that grade and the actual distribution data. The distribution by grade level. what are the other initiatives? So for any of this to happen, we need to make sure our administrators and our staff were able to work immediately remotely. So through years of already preparation and our recent purchases of WebEx, March 16th, we had enabled most of our administrators and staff to be able to use WebEx and other remote technologies to begin working. We created 50,000 student emails and deployed them, and we are adding them. We have boosted Wi-Fi in school buildings. We have surveyed 92 buildings, and we have found 81 buildings our Wi-Fi is available from sidewalks and parking lots. So in dire circumstances, our kids can come in their cars and use our Wi-Fi to get, again, it is not completely equitable at this point, broadband access, but we are actively working on addressing that component. And we have given our teachers and our staff multiple tool sets that will enhance learning and student-teacher communication. We heard Dr. Chapman talk about WebEx. We've actually rolled out WebEx to all our 10,000 staff, and all the teachers are being trained from today. There were really 3 training sessions, and our partners, CBTS and Cisco, is doing the training, and they reported how actively engaged our teachers were and what great questions they were asking, and how successful these training sessions have been. So these tools are put in place for those. We talked about special education students. So we worked with Mr. Bill Mitchell in academic services, Ms. Clark, Elise Clark in academic services, to gather what we call our requirements, to see what we needed this tool to provide. And we have been able to extended it by more than 20 people. Additionally, make sure our queues are shorter and we can address our parents and students. Teamwork makes the dream work. I stole her line. My friend gave it to me, Erwin Rogers, state CIO, and there is no I in team. So I just wanted to thank all gratitude for all these teams. Call out as many as I could, and if I'm, it's not intentional, but to do this, and I wanted to thank and their to work on multiple plans with a moving target, and just working alongside us and making this.
Thank you so much. I know that if there's a date and who should they contact, is it better for students and families to contact the school building before spring break, or should they contact the main number?
So the process with the main number was just we had discussed the process through April 3rd. We had discussed multiple alternatives. We finalized the process to call the main number today, but a lot of the principals have already scheduled with their families through Thursday to distribute the Chromebooks. But they can reach out. I don't want to speak for Dr. Chapman, but I think in the interim that would be the best approach. And if a principal is not able to serve the student, they know to reach out to me and we'll make arrangements.
Board Member Beckerly has a question.
Sure.
Thank you. This is amazing work, as was, I didn't say anything because I was trying to not extend the meeting, but the Office of Engagement work was incredible too. Just a couple of things. I think that long-term, big picture, it's the board's responsibility to make sure we do everything we can to get to be a one-on-one district. So as we're going through all of this, please don't hesitate to communicate with us what you need, how we can help, if we can help. If you guys have it covered, that's great, but please don't hesitate to engage us and tell us what your needs are, because the really exciting thing about all of this is that once we've given these Chromebooks out, they're not going back. The other thing I have is on the broadband front. I'd like to just focus for a second on your statement that this was just the suggestion that our families take advantage of internet access in the parking lots was not the solution. It was just an interim first step. Bear with us, we're working on things. And I think that communication needs to be. It was perceived, I think, entirely wrongly as a failure to recognize equity issues in our district when it was really just our very first attempt to create equity. And so I think that's very important to clarify that. And then the last thing is that it occurs to me in these strange and unprecedented times that while we're moving to have our students all have electronics and trying to provide our families with broadband access, there's a move in telemedicine that's happening where broadband access for our children who are patients of Children's Hospital, and also even like Franklin County Children's Services. I think there's probably a lot of social or community agencies that overlap with our kids where we may be able to work together to try to solve this broadband problem. I mean, I'm thinking in terms of maybe the three agencies coming together and writing a big grant and trying to get some real money to help us solve this problem. So let's think bigger, because it would really be great to have it solved somehow by the time school starts in the fall.
So I've been, that's a great suggestion, Board Member Beckerly. Thank you for that. I've been working with the City of Columbus CIO, Sam Ott, as well as the Franklin County CIO, Adam Fromkin. Between the three of us, we're trying to set up meetings to try and solve, because the broadband issue in the city is just not ours to solve, even though we are doing the virtual learning, but they are willing to partner with us. We are trying to figure out creative solutions between us. We have the infrastructure to do it. We just have to find the right partner, and we're working with partners. And there is actually several bills in the in the U.S. Capitol that talk about broadband equity and how broadband companies should get out of that business and allow public sectors to provide that at no cost, because but those things are all at this time just plans. And you're right. I loved your clarification. These are interim measures we are putting in place so learning can continue. However, that is not the solution, and we continuously try to address equity in so many different ways.
And so, I mean, should we, don't decide right now, but if we want to create a task force or an ad hoc committee, or if there's some way that we can make sure that ball continues rolling. I don't know what metaphor to use, but anyway, so please don't hesitate. And thank you again.
Thank you.
Hey, Dr. Pierce.
Thank you, Board President Adair. I appreciate it. Thank you for this great presentation. So I have two questions. I'm not sure if you're the best person to direct them to, but hopefully you are. Now that our students have these Chromebooks in their homes, I want to know, have we developed a statement that protects if lessons are recorded, if tutoring sessions are recorded, to notify families of their FERPA rights? So specifically, as an OSU professor, I have a statement that has to be noted before all my recorded classroom sessions that you still have FERPA rights, that this recording is used for solely educational purposes. Have we developed a statement like that, and are families aware of that statement?
Thank you, Board Member Pierce. I am not aware of it. We do take care of their cybersecurity needs. We make sure they can email outside the district when we rolled out email to them and those things. But I will work with Mr. Barnes to see if we can answer your question after the meeting. I don't have an answer to that question.
Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Dixon, if we could just give her the resources that she needs to make sure we have that statement in place that's protecting. Is there, again, our recorded sessions, recorded tutoring sessions. The next concern that I have is we've given or we've provided this technology for our families, and it may be the first time that an electronic device is in the home. Have we also provided resources around safeguarding? what are some ways to detect if your kids are veering off of iReady? What are places in the homes where you should set up the computer so they're just not in their bedrooms on the computer and on the internet? So are we empowering parents to use this technology in good ways that are safe for our students and their families?
We do have a lot of resources, family resource website, but this is great. We will try to find the best practices and guides, and we will try to add that to our family resources, because like we are IT geeks, we often don't think about that, because you're right, we assume people know, but that's not right.
I think I'm next.
Yes, I was gonna say it's for Eric.
Yeah, 2 questions. Thank you. First, and this may be far-fetched, but we've got school buildings that are not being used, that are already have internet capability. Is there, can we do it technologically, number one, and number two, can we perhaps get a waiver from the state that would allow us to say put 1 student per classroom, to be able to have them come in and do their internet work there. I don't know if it's out of the question, but for the balance of at least the school year, maybe that's something that's worth exploring.
Thank you, Judge Brown. I don't know the answer to that, but I can say that they can actually, if they're able to come to the schools, they can sit in their cars and use our Wi-Fi just like they could effectively use it from their classrooms.
I see.
We boosted the Wi-Fi in the sidewalks, in the parking lots. So if we are, we give social distancing guidelines and make sure all the health and safety concerns are addressed, they are able to use our school Wi-Fis now, even from outside. We have boosted the Wi-Fi access
okay.
the outside.
I understand that better. The second question, and I'm pleased to hear that you're working with your counterparts with Franklin County and with the city of Columbus to try to come up with a solution to this. But it may make sense to reach out to our corporate partners, to the business community. I know that they are anxious to provide whatever assistance they can to Columbus City Schools and to our students. They too have large tech departments and people, and they may look at things a little bit differently than those in the public sector. And do you think it would be useful to engage a few of them and see what ideas they might have?
Absolutely. I'm working with our Office of Engagement. Ms. Gillison talked about Verizon, T-Mobile, and AT&T, the big providers in city. We are working with them actively to work out, deals, if you will, where we can provide affordable internet access. And I belong to a group of CIOs, 184 of them in Central Columbus. We are constantly with these, I'm putting out requests saying, hey, can you open up your buildings, your locations, your branches for our folks to use that? So we have multiple things in the multiple irons in the fire, if you will. We just don't have any concrete partnerships yet, but we're reaching out. I'm reaching out through the CIO community, and I'm actively working with Alicia and Scott Warner to, see how we can best leverage all these partnerships for our parents and students community.
Good. Well, I don't want to speak for any in particular, but I will make some suggestions. I'll get them to Alicia for some companies that I know are interested in providing some help.
Absolutely. Thank you, Judge Brown.
It looks like we don't have any more questions. So thank you so much, and thank you to your whole team. This was a big effort, and I know that, like you said, we continue to address issues of equity to ensure that we can make sure all of our students have access. So thank you. So back to you, Madam Superintendent.
Thank you, President Adair. Okay, so next up we have Dr. Michelle Klein, who is going to give us a presentation on our virtual enrollment. Dr. Klein.
Thank you so much. Superintendent Dixon, thank you so much. And I'm going to flip over to share my screen. Can everyone see my screen? Okay, great.
Yes.
Thank you so much. So, President Adair, Vice President Reyes, esteemed members of our Board of Education, Treasurer Bajor, it's my pleasure to welcome you to our Central Enrollment Center, virtual enrollment appointments. As Dr. Dixon said, we want Columbus City Schools to lead the way. Since last week, our Central Enrollment Specialists have been conducting their enrollment appointments, including collecting required Ohio Department of Education documents via online. Continue enrolling families for the 2019-20 and 2021 school years. Families can complete registration and schedule an appointment just as they did before our social distance required. Families who have completed the online registration and had appointments canceled during the initial closure between March 16th and approximately 650 appointments received a text message letting them know they would need to reschedule their appointments. Our staff has been reaching out to these families who provided their email addresses and are calling those families without email addresses and rescheduling their appointments. Beginning yesterday on April 6th, families who had appointments received an auto dialer the night before their appointment, letting them know to check their email for directions on how to join a virtual documents at least 1 hour prior to the appointment, so that the enrollment specialist is able to review the information and invite any appropriate additional staff that the family, any other appropriate personnel. At the scheduled appointment time, the individual is invited to the appointment, the family, the staff, click on the link to begin the enrollment did today. The enrollment specialist is able to share the screen with the family, so that the family can confirm that the information is absolutely correct. The family is able to ask questions and receive answers from the appropriate personnel. Once all information is confirmed and all questions answered, the student is enrolled in Columbus City Schools. If enrolling for the current school year, the 2019-2020 school year, the school will then receive an alert on their Certify report, letting them know that they have a new family to whom they need to reach out. Additional feedback to the Central Enrollment staff. The enrollment specialist also emails parents their parent portal access code so that they can count, which allows parents to be very involved in monitoring their child's signing up for summer school or other Columbus City Schools supplemental educational opportunities. One of our enrollment specialists just had this to say about our new virtual appointments. I think the virtual appointments are going very well and will only get better as we enrollment specialists get comfortable with our new normal. It really helps to have all of the documents ahead of time, so when we meet with a parent, we don't have to take up too much of their time. Continue with virtual appointment traffic at Central Enrollment and will actually assist working parents to a greater extent so that they could possibly do a virtual enrollment during their lunchtime or work break time. Then they wouldn't have to worry about averaging 14 minutes per family and we have completed about 100 enrollment appointments virtually at this time. The speech bubbles noted on this slide are actual survey responses from parents and guardians. I would like to publicly applaud Mrs. Tanya Freeman, our Director of Central Enrollment, and Mr. Michael Taylor, Supervisor of Enrollment, for their follow-through and determination to see this project through to fruition. We are leading the way with enrollments in the state of Ohio.
Seeing no questions, but again, Dr. Klein, and amazing work on behalf of your staff. I think, you know, this is where we have to go for the future, right? And we just had to have a little push to get there. And this is really amazing. It's convenient for our families. We're using technology. So kudos to you and your staff for really figuring it out really fast. I wasn't even thinking about enrollment, but obviously we do enroll.
Thank you so much.
Back to you, Superintendent.
All right, and so our last person is Dr. Eric Rausch. So there, he's giving us a legislative update. Dr. Rausch.
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. I've been asked to speak to you this evening about legislative response. I would love to have an hour to go with you, but there's a been, but given the late hour, I'm going to try to do this about both about state and federal legislation. We'll start with House Bill 197. This was the state's response to COVID-19. It was signed into law on March 27th. As an emergency measure, it went into effect immediately. I'm going to stay very high level on a couple of key areas of temporary law and codified law that were contained in the bill that pertain to education. The first of these is Section 15 of the bill. Now, Section 15 of the bill allows districts to either amend its Calamity Day e-lesson plan, or for those districts who may have not adopted one, go ahead and do so. It also waives the statutory provision that says you can only use up to the equivalent of 3 days of your e-lesson plan to make up any missing time students are not physically in session. So this is in essence the way that we'll be able to proceed in order to comply with the minimum school year requirements that are contained in the law. Just like it remains in existing law, the board has to amend the plan, has to adopt that. The school board president, the superintendent, and the teachers union president have to sign off on that amended plan. It's important to note here, and I just want to make sure everyone's aware that the minimum school year, the minimum hours, were not waived or held in abeyance through this piece of legislation. So we still need to meet those, and this is the mechanism by which we are able to do so. So this is a very important piece, and we'll be bringing more information to you in the near future. Section 17 of the Act is where the bulk of the education provisions are contained. Some of this you already know. It waives all the required state testing for this particular academic year, prohibits the department from publishing letter grades and rankings for school buildings and school districts for the year. Aligned with that, it establishes a safe harbor. Along those same lines, if there's no assessments, they've recognized that you would have to exempt provision of third grade reading guarantee since it's based on those assessments. And so it does still allow retention of a student, but it's a local decision. It's based upon the principal and the student's reading teacher really determining if that student is ready to move on. As we get into the high school, we heard from some high school students tonight, but certainly any student who's on track to graduate, and again, that determination of whether or not one is on track to graduate or not is made at the local level. If a student is on track to graduate, they can graduate this particular academic year. They don't have to meet all of the extra requirements that are contained in the law regarding, and of course, exams, remediation for ACT or SAT scores. The section of the Act also allows districts to elect to require only the minimum curriculum specified. Columbus City Schools has opted to go ahead and go beyond that minimum curriculum. And what you'll see before you this evening within your consent agenda is a resolution to suspend hours right now, given the situation. Also specifies it's the intent of the General Assembly the district to provide learning opportunities for students from the time that order went into effect through the end of this school year, and also make sure we get those buildings open. We try to get in front of people to get them the services that they need. Kind of turning a little bit to the house. Again, no assessments. It's hard to do value add. Any of the calculations for value added, so that will be something that we'll have to contend with going forward in evaluations. It also allows the department to issue a one-year non-renewable provisional license for those who can't take the requisite practice exam. So one-year provisional license, the state recognizing the difficulties with that as well. The board select not to conduct evaluations of employees for that year if they find it impossible and practicable to do so. But I would like to note and caution, however, that the Act also states that if a district does not evaluate an employee for this particular school year, it'd be considered that we have not complied with the evaluation procedures codified in Ohio law. And that raises a whole other set of challenges for the district. There's a waiver provision, so this was something that this is not an exhaustive list. A few of the examples here: evaluations, intent to not reemploy, but it does leave the door open that if we identify any others, we can bring that to the department's attention. And then finally, in relation to College Credit Plus, there's really an authority given to the Chancellor of Higher Education, but in consultation with the state superintendent, the ability to modify or waive any of those provisions related to the College Credit Plus program. Also contained within the Act is Section 31, and this is where the Ed Choice situation has been dealt with. As you know, we've been having discussions around Ed Choice for the last several months, and the General Assembly had given themselves until April 1st to come to a resolution. COVID-19 hit then, so the attention shift directly deducted from school districts, and for Columbus City Schools, eligibility is essentially in 2021 is the same as it was in 19. Federal legislation and the CARES Act. I know there's been a couple different COVID-19 response bills. This is also referred to as Phase 3, but the CARES Act does a couple of things. As I mentioned earlier, the state wanted to go ahead and provide waivers. Well, a lot of those requirements are in federal law. So also the federal government is permitted, the U.S. Department of Education is permitted to go ahead and provide waivers for those assessments and for those accountability systems. It also allows for waivers from other certain specific things such as maintenance of effort requirements or carryover requirements. My understanding is that the Ohio Department of Education is going to apply for all of these waivers, just so you all are aware of that. Additionally, and I think of particular interest here is that within 30 days, the Department of Education has to report to Congress if there's any other waivers that may need to be made. And they specifically called out the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA, Elementary and Secondary Education Act. We refer to it often as ESSA, or the Every Student Succeeds Act, which is the last reauthorization, Perkins, and the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. Additionally, there's funding in this particular bill, provides $3 billion nationally to the governor's emergency education relief. And so this is kind of a P20 pot of money. It can be used across the educational spectrum. Don't know yet how much the state of Ohio is expected to get, but we will receive some funding, and that will be at the governor's discretion on how to expend that. There's also $1 billion education relief fund. This is again nationally. This is distributed kind of by looking at the state's Title I distribution. That there is a requirement in the law that anyone who receives are required to the greatest extent practicable to continue to pay employees forthcoming. But I did want to just raise that issue for all of you. Turning back then to the relief fund, this is actually one of the most flexible pots of money I've seen with education funding. Anything under ESSA, IDEA, McKinney-Vento, Perkins, any allowable expenses allowable with the use of these funds. There's also the ability to address sanitizing and cleaning facilities, towards planning for and coordinating long-term closures, purchasing educational technology. We've had a lot of conversation. Health services, and then other activities necessary to maintain operation and continuity of service. So while a lot of good things have been done at both the state and federal level, there's still a number of outstanding issues that we need. Still a lot of questions about that, impact on future investments this year. What's this going to mean going forward down the EMIS. Obviously, Ed Choice, I already mentioned before. This was a short-term to be tackled. In the long term, probably either this fall or going into the next biennial budget process. And then accessibility to the internet. As is referenced tonight, there's a number of things moving along Capitol Hill. There's a desire in a bipartisan way to try to get additional dollars for connectivity. And so I know this was a real high level, fairly speedy run through of some of those key legislative priorities, but at this time.
Well, just by way of clarification from what I said earlier, the testing and the report cards are the suspension of accountability that I was talking about earlier. Okay. No, I knew you probably knew that, but I just wanted to make sure everybody else understood that that was what I meant. You mentioned special education waivers in terms of waivers that are, I guess, can you just go over again? I think I understood what you said. It's the feds kind of understand it's still pending, but that nothing's been done on it yet?
Certainly. So what was a part of the CARES Act was a requirement that the Secretary of the U.S. Department of Education had to provide a list of any other waivers that may need to be made to Congress within this period, so that Congress could go ahead and take action on any of those waivers that may need to occur. So we've raised this issue with members of our congressional delegation. We're working with the Council of Great City Schools right now as well, and helping to kind of compile a consolidated list. Those may be. There are things in Perkins that we really aren't thinking about right now as well. So we're trying to make sure that we tackle anything else that we may need a waiver for in the short term to try to make sure that request comes in. They're already working on the phase 4 response bill. So this thing is continuing to move. We're trying to stay on top of it, just trying to get the information to our partners in Congress and at the federal level as far as advocacy.
What kind of waiver are we talking about in terms of special ed?
So I think, I think what's been raised and just we're trying to make sure that there's some, we understand that, the deadlines that with ETRs and IEPs, certainly if we can do them with virtually is great, but there needs to be, at the very least, if we're trying to make some good faith efforts here, that we're not being penalized as a district. And so trying to make sure that we get language into that effect.
And do you, if there's any way you can, we can be useful in terms of maybe galvanizing more support, talking to electeds, getting other board members across the state to, generate a letter, call their electeds. I mean, this is one that I have my eye on. Because having been a special ed teacher and knowing that any given day, the documentation and the deadlines associated with that are crushing. And I know that there are a lot of special ed teachers out there that are still operating under those deadlines and expectations and those documentation requirements in a situation that is, completely not set up to allow them to be able to do that. And they're being, required at this point to be creative using, online distance learning and tools. And it's a huge burden on them, and I would like to be able to do whatever I can to help get them some breathing room. And I think that we should acknowledge that they're under a lot of pressure and a lot of burdens, in addition to trying to figure out how to deliver services to their students on an individual basis. So
we will certainly reach out and use you where we can do so.
Okay.
Thank you. Board Member Brown.
Thank you. Just have 2 questions. One directly follows on Carol's questions and the discussion about special ed. And I know that a good part of the special ed community, the parents primarily of kids that are receiving special education are really up in arms about the potential for Betsy DeVos to ask for a waiver and get rid of some of the requirements they really fought hard for over decades. And I know that both nationally and statewide. And I've even heard from some folks locally who are concerned about that. The Superintendents Association nationally, ASA, supported the legislation that allowed her that waiver. And Carol really expressed well a lot of the reasons why it does make sense for there to be some changes, deadlines, and requirements. One, I guess, is have we been hearing from our folks in the special ed community? And secondly, how are we, what do we want to try to get from this? Some waivers, but some areas that we want perhaps to do the best thing for our kids, without regard to what would be easier for us.
Sure. I think that to your first question, I don't know to what extent we've had conversations with students with exceptional needs. I'd have to ask our academic team. I personally have not had those conversations. I would say that there's a difference. I would argue there's making sure that providing what's in the best interest and best needs for students, and then kind of bureaucratic red tape. And I think that where we can provide some relief on some of the bureaucratic side of things, paperwork requirements, but maintaining the fact that we're going to provide services and make sure we're doing what's best for students in that regard, that's the line of demarcation to me.
Okay. The second question has to do with the task force that the Speaker of the House here, Householder, has set up, and I guess they've had their first meeting yesterday, and they're going to be looking at all kinds of things, primarily focused on the economy and how to legislate or not legislate with respect to helping the economy get back to normal later, and I really don't like talking about normal. But are there some areas where we can plug into that and seek some things that might be of benefit to us, Columbus City Schools or public education, that might make some sense to consider?
I would agree with you. That was just recently formed. They had their organizational meeting yesterday. I think we're fortunate that we have Representative David Leland on that, as well as Representative Laura Lanise here from that both represent parts of our district. And so since that's just been recently formed, and I know they're right now trying to figure out how they're going to, I think they're working through right now how to go ahead and meet, but still have it so the public can see. I don't know if that was available yesterday for the organizational meeting or not. I know that it held, but I'll be reaching out to their offices here to see where we can plug in and continue to work on a number of other areas where we do have some needs. As we're moving beyond this, we're starting to move to what I think folks are calling the recovery phase. I don't really love that that nomenclature, but it's what's being used at this particular point in time. But really, what are we going to do after on the back end of this? How are we going to try to pick up from where we left off and try to move forward? And I think this is a good opportunity to have those conversations.
Good. And partly I just wanted to make sure it's on our radar and that we're looking for opportunities to participate and focus them on matters that are important to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Cole.
Thank you, Madam President. Just very quickly, to Board Member Beckerly's conversation or question about getting more active and involved with our legislative community. There is a letter that is being distributed to Congress through our FRN advocacy network with the National School Board Association and Federal Relations Network, that is about the CARES Act and advocacy for that. So I'll make sure that I forward that to the team here, and we can make sure that this is distributed to our folks. This letter was actually just written on the 6th.
Thank you.
And Board Member Beckerly, did you have something else?
I'm okay, thanks.
Okay, it looks like we are done with questions for you. Thank you so much, Dr. Roush. I know you spent a lot of late nights and you know, a lot of time away from your family trying to help us figure this out and really advocate for us, not only with the state legislature, but the Ohio Department of Education and the governor's office. You are a team of one, and you are very appreciated.
Thank you.
Back to you, Madam Superintendent.
So that concludes my superintendent's report. Thank you for your patience. I know there was a lot to cover in one meeting, but given the circumstances, I thought it would be the perfect opportunity to give you all of this in one night. And I know it's after 9 o'clock, but again, a lot of good information. You see the work that the team has been doing. We do just want to remind you, we're going to have our PDK audit we're going to have that meeting coming forth, because I think that, and I mention that because I want you guys to be reminded that we did not have an aligned curriculum when we started. So the work that the team has been doing is because we did not have an aligned curriculum. So it wasn't that we could easily pull resources that we had to pull them together to make this work for our students. We had to rebuild. So I just want to make sure that that's noted, that our team did a lot of work to rebuild a curriculum so that we can provide the lessons and the things that we've been able to do in this time period. And everybody, again, has been working together. Thank you again to all of our partners, all of our team members. There's more to come. There's more to come. We know that we're not there yet. We don't have all the answers, but we're going to continue to work to provide those answers for you. Scott Wortman and I committed to coming on more often and doing videos for our more of those. We know that spring break is coming next week, and we've made sure that our families and team members know that next week is spring break. So, and our team, I know this break, even though they can't go home, they can't rather go anywhere else, the break is much needed because they have been working around the clock for the last few weeks. So to our parents and other stakeholders, just know that next week, that is our time that our district will be closed as our members are taking a much needed break. But we'll be back up the following week, again, having my meetings with the ambassadors. We're planning to, a town hall with our seniors. So our students will be helping with that too. And a lot of other exciting things that are going to move forward. So thank you to the board for your support during this time, and just look forward to coming back after spring break and with the board, with our presentations in May. And I know my colleagues have the next board meeting in April for their presentation. And thank you to my colleagues for allowing me to have the majority of the time for this meeting tonight.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dixon. I think we have a few questions actually for you still. Dr. Pierce.
So, Dr. Dixon, I want to thank you and your team for everything that you've done to respond to this situation that we're dealing with, not just as a community, but as a nation. As we continue to deal with this, I have two requests. My first request is, can we acknowledge the fact that our schools serve as sites of refuge? They serve as safe spaces for our families and for our students. And so for some families, a parking lot, being able to go to our parking lot, being able to go to our basketball court feels like they are at home. In our communication to our families, can we acknowledge that we are still your home? We are still here for you, though we might not be able to meet collectively as a community. We are still your refuge, your home, your safe space. Our families need to hear that. I was one of those students. I love school. I still love being in the school building. And we need to acknowledge that. For some of our families, school is their home and their refuge. The second request is when you communicate to our families, Board President, you on me? Okay. When you communicate to our families, is it possible that we could have you featured with some of our building principals, some of our building teachers, not saying that you have to be in the same room doing the message, but that you're sharing the same message. You're providing our community with an opportunity to see another face that's familiar to them, and you're giving our building principals, teachers, and staff members the opportunity to join us in the message that we're communicating, that we're here for you during this tough time. Again, thank you for everything that you and your team are doing. But again, I beg of you to please, let's continue to elevate our message of community, safety, space. Thank you.
Michael or Board Member Cole, do you have a comment? And Board Member Brown, did you have a final comment?
I do. I guess, Dr. Dixon, as I've been listening to this meeting and thinking over time, I hope that you are focused not only on dealing with the immediate crisis and the urgency with a lot of things that we're doing to be able to complete this school year successfully, but that we're also using this opportunity to start thinking about and planning for our future, next school year and beyond. I think that this situation really presents us with huge opportunities. I think Carol touched on that earlier. And I don't think that, what I hear from a lot of people is that they want to return to normal, or they want to get back to the way things were as soon as they can, whether it's returning to work or everything the way it was. And I don't think that's where we should be. I think that we need to really look hard at what we're learning from this and how we can better use online opportunities, how we can better use distance learning, but rethinking a lot of things that this provides us the opportunity to do. Sometimes it takes something as substantial and significant as this to get our attention. And I'm hoping that we're not focused just on getting back next year to the way things were. Our kids are going to need to deal with and learn more about what they've experienced. We need to build that in, but we also, I think this has been an opportunity that, while we didn't want it or ask for it, and are horrified by it, and yet it can help us in so many ways. And I just hope that you're with your team thinking about that as we go forward and beginning to figure out how we're going to approach next year and beyond.
Thank you so much. Did you want to say something, Madam Superintendent?
Oh, no, I just said thank you for that comment.
Okay, thank you again to your entire team. I think that Board Member Brown is absolutely right. This puts us on a path to a new future. Again, exactly what we were talking about with Portrait of a Graduate. It's just helping us get there earlier. And we're doing excellent work. So proud of every single person all of our students, everyone, for getting us where we are in this short amount of time. So thank you for all those reports. Now I'm going to ask the internal auditor, do you have a report this evening?
Thank you, President Adair. I don't have a report. I just have one update that I would like to share with the board and the listening audience. And that is the Auditor of State released our district-wide financial statements earlier in the month of March. That is published on the Auditor of State's website if anyone wants to go out and review that. And it's also a part of our comprehensive annual financial report on our website if anyone wants to review that. And I will have more information on that report at our next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the internal auditor? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Treasurer, any report from you?
No report, just a reminder that we do have a finance committee meeting a week from tomorrow, which would be the 15th, which is the first day back for some of us from a break for the spring break. I suspect that meeting will be conducted just like this one will be, virtually for the members and live streamed as well. So we'll be, after this meeting, very proficient at doing that. So same time, 4:30 on the 15th. That's it.
Great, thank you. Any questions for the treasurer? Seeing none, we will now move into section 8, public hearing on reemployment of employees. I will ask Dr. Stanford, did we receive any public comment or testimony regarding this matter?
Madam President and members of the board, no, I did not.
Okay, thank you. Then we will move on to our consent agenda. Any board member can pull an item off the consent agenda. Was there anything that a board member wanted to pull?
Jennifer, before you get to that, with respect to the 8.1 matter, just wanted to say that generally, I'm not a fan of retire and rehire, and that we should allow new people to come into the world, into the profession, in various opportunities. I understand that this particular one may have reasons with respect to this person's expertise and limited number of people available, and that it may be simply for the duration of the time that it will take to find a replacement. And I think that would be a good approach. But and I'm hopeful that that's what we're doing here. But I think that it's important just to keep in mind that we don't necessarily want to get into these kinds of arrangements haphazard.
Okay, thank you for that comment. Was there any item that a board member wanted to pull from the consent agenda? Are there any comments about the consent agenda?
I have one.
Did I do that wrong, Stan? I think I have to, yes, okay, I'm sorry. Before comments, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Now comments. Vice President Reyes. Board Member Beckerly.
Yeah, I just want to acknowledge again that I am thrilled about purchasing the Wilson Foundation programs for grade 1. So not just kindergarten next year, but first grade, we purchased training as well. So I am very thrilled with that. I think that's going to change the trajectory of our reading, improve our reading scores and change the trajectory of our children's lives.
Thank you. Board Member Cole, did you have a comment?
Yes, just again wanted to reiterate particularly in concern to 13.1 and 13.2, that moving forward, we are considering contracts with any vendors that accommodates software for distance learning. That any vendor that we are being supplied anything to do with academic content, that they are able to provide distance learning supports for our students and for our staff if this is professional development oriented. Thank you.
Thank you. I wanted to point out, as was mentioned in some of our presentations, that item 15.1 is authority to enter into a contract with Verizon to help with internet for our families. And I also want to point out that we have received a donation from I Know I Can for 509, I believe, hotspots. So thank you so much to our partners. I'm sure we will have more information for our families on how to get those hotspots and how to get connected. Any other comments? Mr. Treasurer, please call the roll.
Ms. Beckerly,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Cole,
Yes.
Dr. Pierce,
Yes.
Mr. Ragland,
Yes.
Vice President Reyes,
Yes.
President Adair.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. We will move into board announcements. Any board members have any points of pride or announcements they would like to share this evening? Okay, Vice President Reyes.
I don't want to share anything. I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to do the video at the beginning. I hope people who just joined us, please look at the beginning of the meeting. A lot of, we said a lot. So if you have an opportunity, please do that.
Board Member Brown?
Yes, thank you. I do have a few. One, as I've said before, you've still got an opportunity to vote, and it is very, very important to everyone that they exercise their right to vote. It's all by mail, and you just have to go ahead and do it. Every day, you've got an opportunity until the end of the month. Secondly, please, if you have not yet filled out your census, do so. It's incredibly important to us as a school district, as well as to the community at large, that everybody be counted. Third, want to suggest that everybody not only stay safe and follow the rules, but importantly, you need to check on your neighbors, call people and talk to them, write to them, and most importantly, be kind. We need a lot of that in the world right now and throughout our community. Finally, I just want to, tomorrow evening is the first night of Passover. It's one of the very important holidays that the Jewish community celebrates. And with that being tomorrow, there are some very interesting parallels. Certainly it is a holiday that deals with freedom, and that's important. But it's also a celebration that deals with dealing with adversity. The Israelites in Egypt back in those days had horrible conditions, and they suffered and faced huge adversity. And they realized that they needed to leave. And when they left, they ended up spending 40 years in the desert with far worse circumstances than those that they had in Egypt. And then, like today, like with COVID-19, it was into the unknown. None among them knew where they were headed or what was going to be next. And yet they persevered, they endured, and it turned out to be an opportunity to go to and enter the land of milk and honey. I think we have similar opportunities today with COVID-19 to think about dealing with the adversity in those kinds of terms and look for how it will strengthen us, how it will make us better, how it will provide opportunities. And I know that that's something that Marilyn and I will be giving a lot of thought to with respect to the holiday starting tomorrow evening. But I think that the whole community can benefit from that kind of thinking. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Board Member Brown. Board Member Beckerly, did you have any last thing to say?
Last Christmas time, we were many of us were at a tea together where Dr. Dixon spoke incredibly eloquently about the challenges we had, and she was very inspiring because she said they're big and she didn't shy away from them, and she said we're going to get there and we're going to get there with grace and dignity. And if there was ever an opportunity, or if there were ever more truer words said, I don't think we had any idea the challenges that were ahead, and clearly we didn't have any idea. And the grace and dignity with which everyone has attacked our challenges and come up with all these solutions is really inspiring. And I want to say thank you. I have to say, what I was trying to say when I talked about the suspension of accountability is that as a teacher, I was acutely aware of the burdens of testing and feeling like you had to teach to the test and meet the standard. And, and I know as soon as we became board members, we were concerned about, well, as teachers as well, but certainly the whole specter of a report card that might get us at risk for a academic takeover, that all of these burdens, that this is a unique time where we can really consider resetting and doing things differently. And that was where I was coming from. I did not mean to suggest in any way that learning should not be our priority. I guess I just felt like, and I do feel like, and I would encourage the administration to consider taking advantage of this in a way and perhaps not being as focused on grading and accountability in terms of not learning, but in terms of the sort of traditional things, because we're freed from them for a few months and we really are poised to change the way we deliver education. And that is my suggestion. But again, thank you. I'm beyond impressed and inspired and really honored to be on the board at this time in history. Thank you.
Thank you, Kara. Echo that. I think, we came on this board in January talking about how we are a new team. Family who have really stepped up their game communicating with parents and families. It has been stressful as a working mom and trying to figure out how to get my kid to get dressed and get in front of a computer, but they've been there. In fact, I want to shout out to the school counselor, Mrs. Gross, who actually called my daughter today to lend her some words of encouragement. So I know our team is working hard, and just my own personal school family at Mays, you are appreciated. And I want to thank all of the board members. And again, we're all sitting in the seats we're supposed to be right now to help move this district forward, and I really believe that. So I think at this time, Vice President Reyes has a motion to take us into executive session.
Yes, President Dare, I'd like to move that the Board of Education recess into executive session per section 121.22G4 of the Ohio Revised Code to prepare for, conduct, or review negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment.
If there's a second.
Second.
Call the roll.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Cole,
Yes.
Dr. Pierce,
Yes.
Mr. Ragland,
Yes.
Vice President Reyes,
Yes.
President Adair,
Yes.
Ms. Becker, yes, Ms. Beckerly.
Yes.
That motion carried.
Okay, thank you. We will go into executive session and then we will, it's my understanding, return to this meeting to officially adjourn our meeting. So thank you all for watching on Facebook Live. You can tune in for us to say goodbye in a little while.
And we're done on the live stream, so I'm going to set up the breakout room now. And if you're on here still and don't need to be in the executive session, you can go ahead and log off.
Bye, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Good night.
Good night.